Chapter 201. The Laojun Temple was located in the capital. It was said that the Linglong Pavilion, which Wang Sheng had been looking for, was also located in the capital. This was information that Wang Sheng had inadvertently obtained from the female owner, Bao Qing Yutang. Speaking of which, the royal city of this kingdom was a very peculiar region. Within the boundaries of the royal city, the power of the various aristocratic families was the weakest. Within this region, no one was allowed to cause trouble. On this point, it was very similar to the worry-free city. The difference was that the residents of the worry-free city were a large group of wanted criminals and assassins, while the residents of the royal city were normal, legal citizens. From a simple point of view, the royal city was a unique aristocratic family, the territory of the royal family. Within this territory, the royal family was definitely the strongest, and the control of the other aristocratic families was much smaller. This was the truth. However, the royal family's control method was different from the aristocratic families. They did not make their own territory impenetrable, but allowed other parties other than the aristocratic families to develop freely in the royal city. The royal family did not interfere. When the various small and medium forces combined, they were a force that the aristocratic families could not ignore. Because of the royal family's management method, they had unconsciously become the external forces of the royal family. The royal family had also become a force that could contend against the aristocratic families. However, this kind of power was scattered, and there was no strict control. Although the emperor was known as the ruler of the people, this was not the case in this world. Everyone only acknowledged it verbally. The aristocratic families were also happy to have an area that was safer, more public, and less threatening than the worry-free city. There was no better choice than the royal city. It was also because of this that the royal city became the best place for those who did not want to participate in the conflict between the aristocratic families. For example, the Laojun Temple, the Linglong Pavilion, and so on. Wang Sheng's current appearance was different from his original appearance when he left the worry-free city. Similarly, it was completely different from the virtual image that Wang Sheng had bought. Before leaving the worry-free city, Wang Sheng had bought 10 ordinary masks. How could one only have one face when roaming the pugilistic world? This was especially so for a sniper like Wang Sheng who needed to hide and disguise himself. One more face meant one more choice and one more chance of survival. In any case, Wang Sheng had plenty of gold coins. These were considered high-priced goods in worry-free city. If Wang Sheng said he would take 10 of them, he would not feel any pressure at all. On the other hand, Wang Sheng's actions surprised those who were paying attention to Wang Sheng. 10 different faces. Who knew which one Wang Sheng would use when he went out? Even tracking them was not easy. The necklace that the city lord had sold to him, which was said to be the best, was stored in the Two Faces exquisite seal box. Wang Sheng did not directly open the exquisite seal box, but instead brought it to the capital. Wang Sheng was able to open the Sure family's 4 Phases exquisite seal box, so this 2 Phases exquisite seal box was nothing to him. However, Wang Sheng was much more guarded against the worry-free city lord than he was against the Sure family. It could even be said that he was much more guarded than the other forces. This worry-free city lord, whom Wang Sheng had never seen before, made him feel uneasy. If he opened the exquisite seal box so easily, who knew what kind of trouble would occur? Would the higher-ups have any backup plans? In this world, there were array masters and unique things like arrays, so one had to be on guard. Wang Sheng did not think that he would immediately receive news of the best mask if he went to ask if there was a good mask. Moreover, he would be able to get his hands on it easily. Perhaps the moment he opened the exquisite seal box, the city lord would already be able to confirm that he could open it. Therefore, Wang Sheng still brought the exquisite seal box to the capital and let the Grandmasters of Linglong Pavilion make a move. At least after the Grandmasters made a move, regardless of whether they succeeded or failed, they would be able to see something or hide something. After all, it was only a 2 Phases exquisite seal box, not a 4 Phases one. At the entrance of the capital, when Wang Sheng was about to enter the city, he was given a very strict warning. The ordinary soldiers guarding the gate almost ignored Wang Sheng, But that did not mean that no one noticed Wang Sheng. After passing through the gate, he could be considered to have entered the capital. Suddenly, a man in gray appeared in front of Wang Sheng. A mask from Worry-Free City. Are you planning to start a massacre in the capital? The gray-robed man did not seem very eye-catching. Wang Sheng had not even noticed where he was hiding at the start. His sudden appearance had surprised Wang Sheng. The man in gray recognized that Wang Sheng was wearing a mask from Worry-Free City. Therefore, he naturally thought that Wang Sheng was an assassin from Worry-Free City. Moreover, he was a core assassin. In this day and age, the only people who needed a mask from Worry-Free City were those who had truly escaped into Worry-Free City. The man in gray was obviously on guard, but he did not make a move. Wang Sheng understood that this was a routine inquiry. There was no hostility from the other party. It seemed that the royal family was actually very tolerant of many forces. Of course, this could also be a tragedy for the royal family. Wang Sheng did not find it strange that the man in gray could recognize the mask from Worry-Free City. The main thing was that any array master with a bit of standard would basically be able to recognize it. The man could not see through the array and see his true face under the mask, so Wang Sheng had nothing to be nervous about. I was just passing by and wanted to buy something. Wang Sheng replied honestly. This is the Imperial City. It is best not to do anything that will make people unhappy. As expected, the man in gray was out to ask for a warning. After throwing this sentence at Wang Sheng, he turned around and left. He did not even look at Wang Sheng. He was just a second-stage assassin. Was it worth the experts in the capital to go to war? This was the capital of the world, where the Imperial City was located. Not to mention a second-stage assassin. Even a red-card assassin might not dare to behave atrociously here. Although the royal family could not compete with the aristocratic families in terms of power, they still had this bit of confidence in the capital. Wang Sheng understood this very well. It was to warn Wang Sheng that they knew he was a killer from the moment he entered the city, so don't create trouble. To tell the truth, this display of power was unnecessary for Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had no intention to create trouble in the capital. Just as what he said, Wang Sheng was here to do something and not to create trouble. Godly Might Prison? This is the Imperial City. Don't take things too hard. Before Wang Sheng left the boundary of the city gate, he heard another warning voice. Turning around, Wang Sheng saw a hunchbacked fellow who had been stopped from entering the city and was just as unlucky as him. It seemed that as long as one had a bit of cultivation and murderous aura, he would be warned when he entered the city. Although Wang Sheng's target was Linglong Pavilion and Old Lord Temple, but Wang Sheng did not look for them directly when he just arrived in the capital. As an experienced sniper, when he came to a foreign place, he did not familiarize himself with the terrain, the roads, and find an escape route. Instead, he headed straight for his target. How much of a failure would he be? Wang Sheng would not make such a mistake. He would go around the capital first and at least know how many city gates he could leave from. Chapter 202. Although the royal family was not very powerful, the scale of the capital was really big. Even if the aristocratic families gave face to the royal family and did not care about it in their hearts, the scale of the Imperial City was the most splendid and largest city that Wang Sheng had ever seen. It took Wang Sheng 5 days to go around the whole capital. There were no cars in this era, and the capital was an important place in the Imperial City. Ordinary people were not allowed to ride horses. Wang Sheng could only walk around the whole capital. The Laojun Taoist temple was in the suburbs, not in the city, so there was no hurry to go there. After settling down, Wang Sheng went straight to the heavenly workshop in the capital. It was said that the stronghold of the Linglong Pavilion in the capital was in the heavenly workshop. But Wang Sheng went around the heavenly workshop and did not see a shop with the sign of the Linglong Pavilion. But there were all kinds of small shops in the heavenly workshop, most of which were doing handicrafts. The blacksmith shop, the tailor shop, they were all small shops like this. There were hundreds of shops, big and small, but there was no shop with the name of the Linglong Pavilion. The source of the news was not particularly formal. It was accidentally heard by Wang Sheng from the female owner of the Baoqing Yutang. She said it unintentionally, but Wang Sheng remembered it in his heart. If it was not the female owner, no one would easily tell Wang Sheng about the Linglong Pavilion. How could a company that had a relationship with the Linglong Pavilion casually tell the most exquisite and high-end suppliers to unrelated people? But when he arrived at the place and found such a situation, Wang Sheng could not help but be dumbfounded. He had underestimated these profiteers, and there was not a word of truth in their mouth. Even the female owner, who looked so good and had such a soft voice, knew that she was inadvertently lying. There must be a branch of the Baoqing Yutang and the imperial treasury in the capital, but Wang Sheng would certainly not come to the door. It was too late to hide his identity. If he revealed his name in the capital at this time, wouldn't he be eaten by a pack of wolves? This wasn't the worry-free city. At the very least, those fellows in the inner city of the worry-free city would still have some reservations. On the other hand, those fellows in the capital could act as they pleased. The jade token given by the old eunuch was useful in the capital, and Wang Sheng firmly believed it. However, as long as it was revealed, Wang Sheng would have no choice but to associate himself with the royal family. For the time being, Wang Sheng did not want to have anything to do with the royal family. At the moment, Wang Sheng could not see the benefits of being connected to the royal family. He could not see the possibility of the royal family helping him find the girl of his dreams. Therefore, at this time, Wang Sheng would not easily use the old eunuch's jade token. After pondering for a while, Wang Sheng laughed at himself. Since he was already here, he might as well take a look. His gaze shifted to these small shops. He had to admit that the name Heavenly Workshop was not just for show. This place looked like a hodgepodge of hundreds of workshops, and there were all kinds of things being done here. Wang Sheng even saw a restaurant. The fat chef inside was skillfully stirring the ladle. One look, and he could tell that it was Wang Sheng's cooking skills. He did not expect that in such a short period of time, the cooking skills had already spread from the worry-free city to the capital. Wang Sheng was not in the mood at the moment, so he decided to take a look along the way. After taking a few steps, a sudden scolding sound came from the shop beside him. Then, two figures walked out of the shop. What kind of sh*t is this? It's just forging weapons, and you still have so many complaints. Serves you right for not having any business. The one walking in front was obviously a rich young master. He mumbled with a face full of displeasure. Behind the young master was a servant in green clothes and a small hat. He bent his back slightly and echoed his young master's words, scolding the owner of the shop behind him. That's right, that's right. Can an old man pick up a sledgehammer? He even wants young master to swing a sledgehammer for him. Dream on. The master and servant echoed each other and left unhappily. However, Wang Sheng was interested in the blacksmith shop that did not even have a signboard. There were many complaints about forging weapons in a blacksmith shop. What complaints? Wang Sheng strolled into the rundown smithy. The moment he entered, he saw the old man that the master and servant were talking about. He was indeed an old man. He had a head full of white hair and was dressed in grayish-black clothes. They were not shabby, but there were many small holes on them. One look, and one could tell that they were burnt by the sparks in the furnace. The old man's hands were also the color of smoke and were full of calluses. The old man who was forging looked very healthy. He was completely different from the person that the master and servant said could not even pick up a sledgehammer. However, he was old after all. The customers had already left. The old man was sitting on a bench in front of the furnace, staring blankly at the fire. What kind of weapon do you want to forge? Hearing Wang Sheng's footsteps, the old man asked Wang Sheng without raising his head. If it's for yourself, it's best to use it yourself. Weapons forged by yourself with a sledgehammer are the most suitable for you. With this sentence, Wang Sheng knew what the master and servant were talking about. The old man wanted that young master to swing a sledgehammer. It was probably because of what they were talking about. Could it be that this was the old man's rule? You're the only one here. If you don't have enough manpower, just say so. Why are you talking about this? Wang Sheng did not answer the question. Instead, he smiled and told the truth that he saw. There was only the old man in the blacksmith shop. No matter what he wanted to forge, the old man had a pair of pliers in one hand and a small hammer in the other. He was always short of someone to swing the sledgehammer. Wang Sheng's gaze swept to other places. Finally, his gaze fell on the sledgehammer leaning against the anvil. Hearing Wang Sheng's words, The old man's eyes suddenly lit up. He raised his head and looked at Wang Sheng. A smile appeared on his face. Do you know how to swing a sledgehammer? The entire blacksmith shop looked shabby, but there were two places that were very tidy. One was on the furnace, and the other was near the anvil. Needless to say, the owner must have carefully taken care of it. However, this was not what attracted Wang Sheng. What made Wang Sheng smile was that the furnace did not have bellows. There were no bellows beside the furnace in the blacksmith shop. Was this possible? Wang Sheng had seen many ordinary blacksmith shops in Carefree City, Linchuan City, and Upper Four City. All of them were equipped with bellows. Without bellows, how could the temperature of the furnace rise? How could good items be forged? However, there were obviously finished products in this blacksmith shop. Even though the finished products looked neat and tidy, they were still finished products. Then, there was only an old man. There was no one to help swing the sledgehammer, and no bellows to raise the temperature of the flames. How could the finished products be forged? I can swing. Wang Sheng also smiled, but I don't know how to control the weight. Chapter 203. I don't need you to know the severity of this. The old blacksmith looked at Wang Sheng with disdain. Just swing it with all your strength. You don't have to worry about the rest. The hammer is over there. Come and help me hit it a few times. Okay. Wang Sheng did not refuse. He walked over and reached out to pick up the handle of the hammer that was leaning on the anvil. The old blacksmith threw a few pieces of black stuff into the fire. Wang Sheng saw it. It was not coal. He did not know what it was, but the flames rose high. Then, the old man reached out and threw a piece of metal into the fire. He did not even use pliers. After a while, the old man used a big plier to pick up the burning red metal and put it on the anvil. He held a small hammer in his other hand and began to command Wang Sheng. Use all your strength and hit it. The old man was very impolite. If I don't say stop, don't stop. Keep hitting it. Use all my strength? Are you sure? Wang Sheng was going to help, but he stopped after hearing this request. Do I really need to use all my strength? Stop talking nonsense. The old man was impatient. If he had the time to talk, he could have hit the hammer twice. It was a waste of time. Hurry up. Okay. Since the old man said so, Wang Sheng did not say anything more. He reached out and picked up the hammer that was leaning on the anvil. As soon as he held it, Wang Sheng realized that this hammer was not simple. The weight alone was at least 4 times heavier than Wang Sheng estimated. He did not know what material it was made of. However, even if this hammer was 10 times heavier, it was just a drizzle for Wang Sheng. The old man did not even check the weight before asking him to use all his strength. Wang Sheng did not mind letting the old man open his eyes and let him realize his mistake. The hammer was raised high by Wang Sheng. Then, Wang Sheng used all his strength and hit the red metal lump on the anvil. Bang, kacha, dang dang, a series of sounds rang out. All kinds of metal fragments flew in all directions. The simple and crude smithy looked like it had been attacked by a fragmented high-explosive grenade. Metal fragments of all sizes were embedded in all directions. There were a few places that had already been smashed by the fiery red metal fragments. After a few hissing sounds, small sparks began to appear. Wang Sheng's all-out strike had not only shattered the red-hot metal lump, it had also shattered the anvil beneath it. The hammer in his hand had not been able to remain intact either. The head of the hammer had shattered, and the handle had broken into 5 pieces. Wang Sheng's 2 hands were each holding onto a section that was less than 5 inches long. 2 clear claw marks could be seen on the surface of the section. Because he was already mentally prepared, Wang Sheng was not injured at all. He had already put on protective gloves on his hands and covered his face. The most important part was his chest and abdomen. Even if a few fragments hit him, it would not be a big deal. As for his limbs, Wang Sheng's current muscle strength and strength were enough to resist fragments of this degree. Even bullets would not be able to penetrate his taut muscles. It was too easy to block some fragments. The old blacksmith was also not injured. Although he looked like an old man, his cultivation was not low. Mere metal fragments could not hurt him at all. However, even though his body was not injured, the old man's heart was truly hurt. An inconspicuous anvil made of cold iron crystal and a sledgehammer made of stardust gold were actually smashed into pieces by this guy's hammer? Did he know that any one of those fragments could buy a small half of the heavenly workshop's land? This did not include the energy and labor used to refine the anvil and the sledgehammer. If calculated, it would definitely make an ordinary rich family go bankrupt. His heart ached to death. The old blacksmith wanted to cry, but had no tears. However, he could not blame Wang Sheng because Wang Sheng said from the beginning that he did not know the severity of the situation. He was the one who asked people to smash with the greatest force. Now, Wang Sheng did follow his instructions and smashed with the greatest force. The result was this. While the old man wanted to cry, but had no tears, he had to quickly put out the places that were already on fire. Otherwise, it would not be fun if it caused a fire. With such a big movement, of course, many people in the heavenly workshop heard it. Many people gathered around to see what was going on. The old blacksmith had never been so embarrassed. After putting out the small flames, he hurriedly went out to explain to the surrounding neighbors that it was no big deal. It was just a blacksmithing mistake. There was no cover in this dilapidated shop. What was going on inside was clearly seen by the people. Moreover, they were all neighbors. How could they not know what the old man was like before? Seeing that Wang Sheng was pretending to be innocent while the old man was in a mess, everyone burst into laughter. They did not give the old man any face at all. "Old Li, since you have such a strong helper, can you try the 100 layers forging that you thought of before?" The people laughed for a long time and began to slowly disperse. However, there was someone who had a good relationship with the old man. He reminded him, which made the old man's eyes light up. After saying goodbye to his friend, the old man hurriedly returned to the blacksmith shop. Since Wang Sheng had such great strength, he could use his strength to test his idea. The old blacksmith did not care about anything else as he entered the shop and asked Wang Sheng directly, "How about you help me forge something as compensation for my losses?" "Compensation?" Wang Sheng's eyes widened. "You asked me to use my greatest strength, and now you want me to compensate you? Do you have any shame?" The old man glared. "What? You broke my stuff, and you want to go back on your word?" He had a shrewd and unruly attitude. "I can help you, but you have to do me a favor in return. Then we are even." Wang Shinkai would not allow the old blacksmith to act shamelessly. He did not hesitate to state his own request. The old man really just wanted to rely on him. When he saw that Wang Sheng's attitude could not be ignored, he immediately changed his tone and asked, "What request? Help me open this." Wang Sheng did not refuse. He was not afraid that someone outside would see it. He directly took out the two-phase exquisite seal box containing the pendant and showed it to the old man. The old blacksmith was silent. A few people outside who had not left looked at Wang Sheng with unfriendly eyes. "How did you know?" Finally, the old blacksmith, who had been silent for a long time, opened his mouth. He coldly asked Wang Sheng, "Little assassin." He exposed Wang Sheng's identity as an assassin. Obviously, he had recognized the mask that Wang Sheng was wearing at a glance. Chapter 204. To be able to recognize the mask of the carefree city, he must be an expert in formations. Wang Sheng had seen quite a few of them in the past few days. However, at this moment, Wang Sheng's heart was filled with joy. He had found the right place. "I wasn't sure at first," Wang Sheng replied with a smile. "I heard the commotion and came in to take a look. However, when I came in, I realized that it was unusual, so I followed your instructions." "What's unusual?" The old blacksmith waved to the outside, and at least 3 old men slowly walked into the blacksmith shop. They began to help remove the metal fragments from the surrounding walls and sorted them out. As for the old man himself, he asked as he worked. Wang Sheng did not stay idle either. He also began to help remove the fragments. Without delay, he quickly replied, "There are no bellows in your blacksmith shop." "So what?" The old blacksmith was quite stubborn. He was very unconvinced that Wang Sheng could see through him at a glance, so he retorted angrily, "There are no bellows, but you can still make quite a few good things." Wang Sheng pointed to the very orderly quality products and smiled. "Either your cultivation is very high, and you can use spiritual energy to raise the temperature of the flames, It was not impossible to use spiritual energy to raise the temperature of the flames. Wang Sheng had seen ice leaf freeze people into ice. Since it could freeze, it must be able to heat up. If that is not the reason, then there must be other auxiliary methods in this furnace. Wang Sheng pulled a fragment of the hammer from the beam and handed it to an old man. He smiled and said, "For example, a brilliant formation or something, in addition to a certain rumor that I heard before." Wang Sheng spread out his hands. There was no need to say anything else. Everyone could guess what he was going to say. That rumor must be that there were people from the Pavilion of Delicacy in the Heavenly Workshop. Many people came to look for them, but they rarely found them. The old blacksmith shop had been open for many years. There were no less than 10 million people who came in and out, but only a few people could discover the secret. Wang Sheng was able to deduce so many things from such a small amount of clues. Even the old blacksmith had to admit that this guy's eyes were really sharp. "Are you so sure that this place has something to do with the Linglong Pavilion?" Since Wang Sheng had even taken out the exquisite seal box, the old blacksmith did not hide it and directly asked. "In fact, it's not just here," Wang Sheng replied with a smile. "At first, I also thought that this was the only place, but now I don't think so. So the entire Heavenly Workshop is actually the Pavilion of Delicacy." The Heavenly Workshop was an area where craftsmen gathered in the capital. Many of the items used in the palace were produced by the Heavenly Workshop. Apart from completing the royal tribute mission, this place would also produce some items for private use. However, those who could directly use these items were all important figures of high status. It was rare for ordinary people to be able to buy anything here. Even the young master that Wang Sheng met only knew that this place was exclusively for the royal family. He came here to find a chance to see if it was possible to buy a few exquisite items. He did not expect that the old blacksmith would make things difficult for him. Because this place was exclusively for the royal family, there were very few customers here. Most of the shops were scattered around, doing a few businesses that were not worth paying attention to. Under the cover of this situation, no one knew that the Pavilion of Delicacy was actually in the Heavenly Workshop, and no one knew that, in fact, all the shops that Wang Sheng saw actually belonged to the Pavilion of Delicacy. Even if those who had heard the rumor came to verify it, few people with poor eyesight could find it. It was not that there were no curious fellows who tried to search one shop after another. However, he did not realize that, in fact, in every shop he entered, everyone he met was actually from the Pavilion of Delicacy. "I can help, but I can't guarantee that I can open it, nor can I guarantee that I can open it completely." The old blacksmith finally did not say anything more. The other old men also looked at Wang Sheng with admiration. They were not afraid that he would expose this secret at all. Okay, what Wang Sheng wanted was just an excuse for them to help. It made no difference to Wang Sheng whether he could open it or not. He directly nodded and agreed. "Let's go to another place." The old blacksmith did not care about the things here anymore. Naturally, someone would clean it up. He pulled Wang Sheng to another place in the Heavenly Workshop. The shops outside were the facades for business. There was a large area inside the Heavenly Workshop which was actually not open to the public. However, it was the place where many masters worked. This was the place where the old blacksmith pulled Wang Sheng to. "Use a little strength first. Let's have a try." This time, the old blacksmith learned his lesson. He did not ask Wang Sheng to use the greatest strength. Instead, he used the strength bit by bit, looking for the best strength, and then asked Wang Sheng to maintain it. Wang Sheng was also very cooperative. He swung a big hammer made of better material and heavier than the ones outside, and carefully tested the strength bit by bit. Finally, after swinging the hammer over 100 times, the old blacksmith was satisfied. "This is the strength. You can't exceed it." For Wang Sheng, this strength was very easy. He did not need to exert much effort. He could just swing it normally. The weight of the big hammer and his speed were enough to cause a sufficient impact on the forging. However, such strength was definitely a disaster for ordinary blacksmiths. Ordinary anvils could not withstand such a force at all. No wonder the hammers and anvils were specially made. There was even a protection formation inside. When forging, one had to use spirit energy. The material used to make it was very special. Ordinary masters could not be like Wang Sheng, who could swing the big hammer with just physical strength. After a few hits, they had to change people. However, it was not easy to control the strength when changing people, so the old blacksmith could not do it even if he wanted to. No one came to disturb the old blacksmith. It seemed that what happened outside had no effect on the inside. There were only two people here, Wang Sheng and the old blacksmith. Another lump of metal was placed on the anvil after it was heated red. Wang Sheng began to hammer according to the previous strength, according to the position pointed by the old man's small hammer. The lump of metal turned into an iron sheet. The old man folded it and continued to forge. When it was almost done, he folded it again and repeated the process. Wang Sheng knew what the old man was going to do. Not long ago, he heard it outside. It was said that it was forged after 100 folds. However, the old man was obviously wrong. Did he really think that the more times he folded it, the better it was? Actually, it doesn't have to be folded 100 times. Wang Sheng swung the hammer and said casually, "After a certain number of folds, the hardness and toughness are the most suitable, but after that, I'm afraid it will become softer and softer. If you just take it for granted, I'm afraid there won't be any good results." This was not Wang Sheng talking nonsense, but scientific proof from the industrial age on Earth. This primitive manual forging could forge out the carbon in the steel. The carbon content was suitable for the steel, but too much or too little would affect the material's performance. Wang Sheng said it casually, but in the ears of the old blacksmith, it was no less than a deafening bell. Chapter 205. Then how do I know when is the best? The old blacksmith stopped hammering and didn't care if he would damage the material after stopping. After thinking for a while, he raised his head and asked, "There's no good way, just experiment." Wang Sheng replied casually. There was no large-scale computer simulation, no systematic research on basic materials, and no accurate chemical composition. It was all based on generations of experience and the results obtained in the dark. There was no good way other than experimenting. How many times do we have to experiment? When will we stop experimenting? The old blacksmith obviously didn't realize that Wang Sheng said such a stupid method and couldn't help but frown. Wang Sheng could not be bothered to argue with the old man. You still don't want to experiment with materials? Serves you right for not accomplishing anything. That was all he said. Those who made materials on Earth, which of them didn't need to stay up all night in the laboratory to determine the characteristics of material? In order to find new material, it was unknown how many times they had to do experiments and how many times they failed before they were lucky enough to get the formula of a new material. It could be said that in the industrial era on Earth, they could only use this stupid method to play with materials. Even if there was a large-scale computer that could simulate and calculate, the results of the simulation algorithm still needed to be verified by real experiments. Not wanting to experiment and taking it for granted that it was feasible was completely a stroke of luck. That was to rely on the experience accumulated by the predecessors and oneself to roughly infer that there was a large part of the factor of luck. It had to be said that it was too backward and too unscientific. Of course, this might be the norm in this world. This place had not reached the level of industrialization, and it was already very good to rely on manual experience to achieve this. Therefore, Wang Sheng only said one sentence and didn't say anything else. However, this sentence made the old man even more dumbfounded. His mouth was half open, and he didn't care that some of the ashes had already floated into his mouth. He just stood there, motionless like a wooden man. Wang Sheng stopped completely, and the old man stopped hammering himself. Wang Sheng was afraid that the old man would hit something when he was lost in thought, so he waited slowly. After a long while, the old man recovered and turned to look at Wang Sheng as if he was looking at a monster he had never seen before. He stared and asked, "How did you think of it? Do you even need to think about it? This is the stupidest way." Wang Sheng almost turned around and left. Was the grandmasters of the Ling Long Pavilion only at this level? The old blacksmith was stunned again. After a while, he looked at Wang Sheng with a puzzled expression. "It's over." The old man must have gotten himself into a dead end. Wang Sheng was here to ask him to find a few great grandmasters to open the two-phase exquisite seal box. not to make him waste his time here. There are no shortcuts on this path. Wang Sheng hurriedly said some comforting words. You think there's a shortcut, but in fact, you're just standing on the shoulders of your predecessors and letting them lead you through this part of the road. Actually, all the paths are the same. There is only one. While Wang Sheng comforted the old man, he was also thinking about it. This was not a sigh. It was from the bottom of his heart. Although Wang Sheng could look down on the natives of this world with some scientific methods, Wang Sheng knew that he himself was only standing on the shoulders of those giants on earth. Standing high and seeing far, that was all. There was nothing to be proud of. It was just like the way of cultivation in this world. Wang Sheng was also standing on the shoulders of the cultivation seniors of the two worlds, using their experiences and lessons to improve himself. However, the road under his feet still had to be firmly rooted to the ground and move forward. Young man, these words of yours are worth a few drinks with. The old man suddenly laughed, and the puzzled expression on his face was swept away as if the things that had been bothering him had disappeared. My treat. The old man was in high spirits, and Wang Sheng would not spoil the mood, so he immediately said, No rush, no rush. I still have a question to ask you. The old man smiled happily, as if he had seen an old friend of many years. Say, there's so few materials, only enough to make a weapon. How should I test it? That depends on what you think is more important. Wang Sheng replied almost without hesitation. Is it more important to find a new material and production method, or is it more important to build a divine weapon? It's up to you to choose. Ha ha! Hearing Wang Sheng's words, the old blacksmith suddenly laughed happily. Which is more important? Ha ha! It turns out that the answer is actually so simple. Amidst the wild laughter, Wang Sheng noticed a majestic spiritual power gathering in this direction. This feeling was too familiar to Wang Sheng. It was clearly the tempering of the spiritual power when breaking through. The old man actually broke through after listening to his words. This was worthy of celebration. Wang Sheng did not disturb him. He found a corner to sit down and waited quietly. The movement here could not be hidden from the surrounding people. Immediately, 7 or 8 similarly old people rushed over. There were men and women. Seeing the old blacksmith standing there and tempering his body, and Wang Sheng sitting next to him watching the fun, everyone did not make a sound, nor did they make any big movements. They also quietly found a place to stand or sit around, waiting quietly. 2 old men also deliberately found a place near Wang Sheng. On the surface, they did not say anything, and even nodded and smiled at Wang Sheng. However, Wang Sheng understood that the 2 of them were still guarding against him. This was normal. After all, Wang Sheng was a stranger. At such an important moment for the old blacksmith to advance, Wang Sheng was like an irregular time bomb. It was never wrong to be careful. From the time of tempering, one could basically see the level of a cultivator's cultivation. The longer the time, the higher the cultivator's cultivation. The last time Wang Sheng tempered his body was 4 hours, so his cultivation was only at the 3rd stage realm. But this old blacksmith, from the start of tempering till now, it had been a total of 8 hours, and there was still no sign of completion. He still stood there motionless. Wasn't this too exaggerated? Previously, Wang Sheng guessed that his cultivation was at the 5th stage realm, but now it seemed that it was more than that. A seemingly casual old man from the Pavilion of Delicacy had such a cultivation. Then this Pavilion of Delicacy was definitely not a pushover. Finally, at the 11th hour, the old man completed the tempering and recovered from the state of cultivation. But this time was half a day. When he came in, it was still daytime, but when he left, it was already midnight. I have been puzzled before. Finally, this young man's words made me understand. The old blacksmith had praised Wang Sheng many times. The first sentence after he finished the cultivation shocked the surrounding old men. Chapter 206. This young assassin, wearing the mask of Carefree City, could actually help his old friend to break through? The few old men immediately looked at Wang Sheng in a new light. Wang Sheng's cultivation seemed to be at the 2nd stage, but not the 3rd stage. Other than the time when the old blacksmith was tempering his body, They had never worried that Wang Sheng could hurt anyone. But for a young fellow to help the old man to break through, this was big news. They had to hear what was going on. The few old men, together with Wang Sheng, went to another courtyard. Soon, someone prepared wine and food, and everyone started to drink to celebrate. Speaking of which, your carefree city has produced quite a number of good things recently. Everyone was celebrating the advancement of the old blacksmith. They were very happy, and the content of their conversation was also from all over the world, talking about whatever came to mind. An old man didn't care about the identity of Wang Sheng under the mask. He only knew that he was an assassin from Carefree City, and he was talking about Carefree City. Let's not talk about other things. Just this stir-fried dish alone is an eye-opener for us. Another old man continued. I've lived my whole life, but I didn't understand it. Only when I'm old did I understand that food can be cooked and eaten in this way. With regards to this, all the old men and old women agreed. They were all people who pursued extreme craftsmanship in a certain aspect. Using some sayings that Wang Sheng knew on Earth, they were a group of craftsmen with a heart of craftsmanship. As for cooking, they had never looked down on it. Speaking of which, they enjoyed talking about it. Since they were talking about food, everyone naturally wanted Wang Sheng, the guy who came from the birthplace of delicacies, to point out the pros and cons of their food today, where it was good and where it was lacking. In this aspect, Wang Sheng still had the right to speak. Not to mention that he was the one who made it. Just based on his current world's best tongue, he could point out the pros and cons of these dishes even with his eyes closed. Wang Sheng didn't treat himself as a junior and wasn't afraid of offending the old lady who was cooking, so he unceremoniously commented on the dishes one by one. From those who were near to those who were far away, he commented on the dishes one by one. This one is salty, that one is bland, this one is old, and that one is tender. Wang Sheng spoke as if he was pointing out mountains and rivers. The old lady who was evaluated did not feel that Wang Sheng was being rude. In essence, she was still a craftsman. It was normal for a person who knew her craft to be picky about it. In particular, what Wang Sheng said was too accurate. Not only were there flaws in the seasonings and heat control, but Wang Sheng was also able to point out the problems with the materials she used. They were fresh, old, bug-like, not fully ripe, and so on. It was as if he had seen them with his own eyes. The more skilled a craftsman was, the more they cared about being picky about the details. In the end, after a round of nitpicking, not only did Wang Sheng not receive any supercilious looks, he even received thumbs up from several elderly people. Professional. Wang Sheng's comments were on point, just like how they usually commented on the works of their peers. In the past, he had always thought that eating was just eating, but now he realized that cooking was also a skill that reflected one's level. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, everyone then asked the old blacksmith about the opportunity to break through. After talking for a while, they talked about the words that Wang Sheng said. They were all masters who had been immersed in a certain industry for decades, or even longer. After hearing it, all of them were filled with emotion. There has never been a shortcut. Several people pondered over the meaning of this sentence and sighed. Not only blacksmithing, but in fact, which industry had shortcut? As Wang Sheng said, if there was a shortcut, it was just to stand on the shoulders of the predecessors and take a step forward on the foundation of the predecessors. To be able to stand in this realm, which of them didn't lay a foundation from childhood, learn experience, and then work hard to innovate on this foundation, day after day, year after year, to reach today's position? Wang Sheng's words simply spoke to the bottom of their hearts. No wonder the old blacksmith could be enlightened and break through because of these words. Just because of these words, it was worth drinking a few cups of wine with this young man who didn't know his true colors. Even Wang Sheng himself didn't expect that a little thing that he had suddenly thought of would make the old men of the Ling Long Pavilion hit it off so well. Based on the age of these old men, Wang Sheng believed that any one of them would be several times older than him. As for their identities, Wang Sheng didn't know. Apart from the old blacksmith who forged the iron, he didn't know the rest of them. However, this didn't prevent Wang Sheng from talking and laughing with them and giving them pointers. It was a strange tacit understanding. You helped me figure out a lot of things. What reward do you want? The old blacksmith's face was glowing. His cultivation had improved, and he looked a few years younger. He was in high spirits and smiled happily as he asked Wang Sheng, "Old man, help me find a few grandmasters to open that box." Wang Sheng didn't ask for anything. It was unreasonable to ask for a reward just because he said a few words. If it was some technical key point or something, Wang Sheng might have been able to confidently ask for remuneration. However, this was clearly the most common logic. If he dared to accept benefits from others, he would suffer the wrath of the heavens. That's a different matter. The old blacksmith was more stubborn. He shook his head and said, "Open that box. I've already promised you before. That doesn't count. Open it again." Wang Sheng still wanted to refuse. Before the old blacksmith could argue, the other old men were already unwilling. They all asked Wang Sheng to take the initiative and ask boldly. The higher the request, the better. The more outrageous, the better. It was as if they wouldn't be happy if they didn't rip off the old blacksmith. Seeing the old men teasing him like this, Wang Sheng felt as relaxed as when he was with his bad friends on Earth. Perhaps this was the relationship between these old men. Under these circumstances, Wang Sheng couldn't refuse and could only agree. After thinking for a while, Wang Sheng seriously asked the old blacksmith, "How about you help me find a master sculptor? I want to learn stone carving." The old men were waiting excitedly for Wang Sheng to make a tricky request to make things difficult for the old blacksmith. In the end, after waiting for a long time, Wang Sheng's request came. They looked at Wang Sheng as if they were looking at an idiot. That's it. The old blacksmith couldn't believe that Wang Sheng would make such a simple request. That's it. Wang Sheng nodded. Seeing that everyone's face was not very good, he added, "I only want to learn stone carving. I don't need to learn anything else." Seeing that everyone's face was still not good, Wang Sheng had to add, "You have to find a master. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing if you don't learn it well." Seeing that Wang Sheng was very serious, the old blacksmith finally confirmed that Wang Sheng was not joking. He stared at Wang Sheng for a while. Seeing that Wang Sheng didn't waver, he clapped his hands and said, "Okay, I'll find you a master." Chapter 207. Wang Sheng wanted to learn how to carve a stone tablet was not on a whim, rather it was premeditated. In his source spirit space, the giant tablet on the back of the swan and I was completely empty. There was not a single word on it. When Wang Sheng was trying to make the swan and I split up to disguise his cultivation, a part of the swan and I flew to the top of the giant tablet. It was covered by the white mist, so he did not know what it was. At first, Wang Sheng did not know what it was, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that it was another of the 9 sons of the dragon, Fu Shi. Fu Shi was the one that looked the most like a dragon out of the 9 sons of the dragon. His body was like a dragon, he was elegant and refined, and he had a good life. He coiled around the top of the stone tablet. The part that was covered by the white mist was at the top of the giant tablet. It was exactly the same as Fu Shi's description. Good writing, but there was not a single word on the giant tablet. Wang Sheng realized that this was the condition for the Fu Shi transformation. He had to carve the words on the giant tablet to complete the Fu Shi transformation. Carving words on the stone tablet was not something that could be done by just casually carving a few words on it. Fu Shi liked calligraphy, so he had to carve calligraphy that Fu Shi was satisfied with. Calligraphy was a big challenge for Wang Sheng. Letting Wang Sheng operate various tanks and even planes, Wang Sheng did not have a problem. Letting Wang Sheng operate various weapons, pistols, rifles, sniper rifles, machine guns, rockets, etc., Wang Sheng also did not have a problem. Even letting Wang Sheng operate some cold weapons, daggers, sabers, and other delicate tools, Wang Sheng also did not have a problem. But letting Wang Sheng write, the evaluation he wrote, it would already be good enough if he could recognize it. This was the effect of writing with a hard pen, like a pencil, pen, or ballpoint pen. This world did not have these things. Writing was done with a brush. When it came to calligraphy, Wang Sheng could only be described as clueless. Good calligraphy also needed good carving skills. Wang Sheng originally wanted to find a place to learn, but since this was the exquisite pavilion, there must be a master in this field. Wang Sheng did not need to go far, so he took this chance to make a request. Old man Liu, how was it? The old blacksmith didn't even need to go anywhere else. He directly asked the white-bearded old man in front of him. You owe me one. White-bearded old man Liu was also a straightforward person. He did not care about the fact that Wang Sheng was an assassin from the carefree city. This was a matter between him and the old blacksmith. It had nothing to do with Wang Sheng. Turning to Wang Sheng's side, old man Liu looked Wang Sheng up and down and asked, Do you have the strength? Yes. This sentence was not answered by Wang Sheng, but by the old blacksmith. He smashed my frost iron crystal anvil and my stardust gold sledgehammer with one strike. Oh, a few of the elders didn't know what had happened outside. When they heard this, they all stared at Wang Sheng in astonishment. Others might not know about cold iron crystal and stardust gold, but how could they not know? The tools made of these two metals were several times stronger than normal iron, but they were actually smashed by Wang Sheng's sledgehammer. This was completely beyond the imagination of many people. If it's just carving the stone tablets, it's simple. Old man Liu didn't waste any time and directly said, If you have the strength, then make a few hundred stone tablets. First, draw the words on them, and then carve them according to the mark. You also said that there are no shortcuts. Carve them one by one. After carving a few hundred, you should be able to get started. It's not like you're becoming an apprentice, so there's no need to go through so much trouble. I have a little disciple. You just need to follow him to practice your basic skills. It sounded very simple, and the reasoning was very clear. After practicing the basic skills, then carving a few hundred stone tablets would be enough. But Wang Sheng still gave a bitter smile. Writing? Who would do that? That was in the spirit space. Who would be able to write for Wang Sheng? I might have to learn how to write too. Wang Sheng touched his nose and said with a bit of embarrassment, You want to write it yourself? Old man Liu didn't expect Wang Sheng to have this request. How about calligraphy? Very bad. Now that things had reached this point, Wang Sheng could only pinch his nose and admit it. Then go and learn it yourself. Old man Liu didn't care why Wang Sheng wanted to write it himself. Everyone had their own secrets. With a wave of his hand, he directly told Wang Sheng to learn himself. He was an engraving master, not a calligraphy master. He told Wang Sheng where to find old man Liu's little disciple. Basically, today's celebration was over. The old blacksmith warmly invited Wang Sheng to stay for the night. As for himself, he took Wang Sheng's two-faced, exquisite seal box and looked for someone to help him open it. The night passed without anything happening. When Wang Sheng woke up in the morning, the old blacksmith had already returned. He was sitting in the yard eating porridge while waiting for him to wake up. Your seal box. The old blacksmith gently pushed the box over. Wang Sheng already looked at the familiar seal box. It was obviously opened. Wang Sheng's eyes suddenly lit up. It was even better if an expert from the Linglong Pavilion helped to open it. It saved him the trouble of doing it himself and having to hide it. This seal box has been set up with an array from the beginning. The old blacksmith saw that Wang Sheng wasn't in a hurry to open the seal box. He slightly admired him in his heart. He slowly said, It's not useful for keeping secrets, but it can protect the seal box. It's especially not afraid of being smashed. Wang Sheng nodded. It was not new to add a layer of protection outside the seal box. Wang Sheng had seen how the four aspects exquisite seal box looked like when it was opened. There was only so much space inside. There wasn't even a protective layer to store a fragile thing. It was not a bad idea to use an array to protect it. The thing inside is not bad. The old blacksmith saw that Wang Sheng didn't have any intention to open it. He continued, It's much more advanced than the one you're using now. However, there's a little trouble with the array. As long as you use it, you can still find it with a special tool. My old friend was excited and helped you remove the little thing. You can use it as you please. I'll be found out as soon as I use it. Wang Sheng already had an idea. This pendant mask was indeed a very advanced item, but it must be under the surveillance of an expert at all times. His whereabouts must always be in someone's grasp. Perhaps this was the real meaning of this pendant. The person who knew his whereabouts might be Sister Rosa, the city lord, or even the housekeeper or Isley. Of course, the biggest possibility was the array master who made the pendant. Wang Sheng didn't know who the target was. Fortunately, the old blacksmith's friend was itchy and removed the little thing in the array. Otherwise, Wang Sheng really didn't know whether he should use it or not. No one knew that when the two aspects exquisite seal box was opened, outside the heavenly workshop, in a room next door, a jade pendant on the chest of a person who was still sleeping suddenly exploded, directly waking up the sleeping man. Chapter 208. When the jade pendant broke, the man woke up immediately and realized what had happened. In fact, the so-called stabilizing formation on the two-phase exquisite box had another function. When the formation was broken and the exquisite box was opened, a small destructive formation would be activated at the same time. The thing that would be destroyed was the jade pendant that the man was wearing. The destructive formation had to be very close to the exquisite box, within 500 meters to be effective. Because of this, the man lived in the workshop not far away from the heavenly workshop. He wanted to verify this. To open the exquisite box, he had to either destroy the item inside by himself or find the great grandmaster of the Pavilion of Delicacy. However, even if he found someone from the Pavilion of Delicacy, there was no guarantee that he would be able to open it. Once the jade pendant broke, the man knew that the exquisite box had been opened. He really came to the Pavilion of Delicacy. The man looked at the broken jade pendant and shook his head. It seems that he can't open the exquisite box himself. It's useless. Wang Sheng opened the exquisite box and saw the overly simple pendant at first glance. He picked it up and put it on his military tag chain in front of the old blacksmith. Once his spiritual energy was activated, Wang Sheng changed his face. Yes, I can't see through it at first glance. I can't feel it either. The old blacksmith nodded. I still look better this way. When Wang Sheng left the Heaven Workshop, he had a new look. Not long after leaving the Heaven Workshop, Wang Sheng sensed more than 10 auras lingering on him. After being stared at for a while, they all dispersed. Wang Sheng looked around vigilantly. A burly man suddenly warned him from the corner, "Brat, it's none of your business. Hurry up and leave. Don't get in the way." After warning Wang Sheng, the burly man looked in the direction of the Heaven Workshop again and ignored Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had an idea. He pretended to cooperate and left. After taking a big detour, Wang Sheng turned in another direction. It didn't take long for Wang Sheng to see that there were 5 or 6 people in this direction who were paying attention to the direction of the Celestial Workshop, as if they were blocking a certain target. These people were definitely looking for him. Wang Sheng immodestly set himself as the target. Wang Sheng did not believe that these people were after the Linglong Pavilion. The Linglong Pavilion was different from other businesses. There were many grandmasters and great-grandmasters in the Linglong Pavilion. Any one of them could be related to many experts. Unless the 5 great clans and the imperial family joined hands, no one would dare to touch the Linglong Pavilion. Since they weren't targeting the Pavilion of Delicacy, Wang Sheng couldn't think of anyone else other than himself who was worth sending so many experts to guard against. It was fortunate that he had changed into a high-grade mask, so that ordinary formation experts wouldn't be able to see through his disguise. If he was still wearing the mask from the worry-free city, he would have long been exposed. Or was the target exposed? Wang Sheng directly placed his suspicions on the exquisite seal box. It must be the Linglong seal box that exposed him. There was no other possibility. Who was it? Sister Rosa? Housekeeper? City governor? Or the shadow old eunuch? Wang Sheng couldn't be sure. However, the city governor and the shadow old eunuch were the biggest suspects. It was not a simple force that could mobilize so many experts in the capital. Wang Sheng did not care about this. He left the heavenly workshop leisurely under the watchful eyes of the group of people. He didn't even return to the inn where he stayed before and directly left the capital. Old Lu's little disciple was not in the capital, but in a small mountain village on the outskirts of the capital. As a student of carving, he couldn't disturb the people in the capital, so he chose a relatively secluded place. Wang Sheng left the capital But the people in the capital were nervous for a few days. Those people searched for Wang Sheng for a few days, but they couldn't find him, so they had to leave resentfully. What? You didn't find him? How is it possible? After a search expert reported, the master who gave the order was furious. A man wearing the mask from the worry-free city. You can find him with your eyes closed, right? You 40 or 50 people didn't find him. Useless. My lord, we've searched in all directions of the heavenly workshop. Everyone who came out has been checked, and there is no lone wolf, the subordinate hurriedly explained. Find a way to find him in the workshop. The master was also very unhappy, but he could only give another order for them to carry out. Wang Sheng had disappeared again, and in the capital under their eyes. How could they accept this? Although no one could figure out when Wang Sheng came to the capital, since he had touched the exquisite seal box in the Linglong Pavilion, it meant that he must have come. It wasn't that they didn't think that Wang Sheng had used the pendant, but as soon as the pendant was used, it would be detected by someone. Until now, there had been no movement from that person, so Wang Sheng must have used it. It was very likely that the exquisite seal box had not been opened at all, or it had been destroyed. Although it was only a two-faced exquisite seal box, it wasn't something that an ordinary grandmaster could open. According to everyone's understanding of the exquisite seal box, at least 4 grandmasters were needed to open it at the same time. With 4 grandmasters working together, did a mere barbarian like Wang Sheng have the face to do so? Not to mention Wang Sheng, Bao Qing Yutang's business was big enough, but they could only come into contact with grandmasters of the Linglong Pavilion, which Tom, Dick, or Harry could meet a grandmaster as they pleased. Moreover, there were only a few grandmasters in the Linglong Pavilion in the capital. How could there be a grandmaster? Are you talking about those old men and women who set up stalls in front of the street? What kind of joke was this? Everyone firmly believed in their own judgment. After searching secretly for a few days without any results, they could only helplessly accept the fact that Wang Sheng had disappeared again. This Wang Sheng could definitely be considered a grandmaster who had escaped. So many people had not been able to catch him. It seemed that they could only contact him in the carefree city in the future. Perhaps, if they didn't kill Wang Sheng, it wouldn't be a bad idea to invite him to kill a few fellows whom they didn't like. Wang Sheng could even kill a 7th-degree realm Daiwuji. Wouldn't it be easy for him to kill a few people whose cultivation wasn't as high as Daiwuji? Wang Sheng didn't know that his stroll around the capital had attracted the attention of a certain powerhouse in the capital. He was now holed up in the small mountain village where old man Lu's disciple was at. The person who taught Wang Sheng the basics was not a middle-aged uncle like Wang Sheng thought, but an 11 or 12-year-old kid who was younger than Wang Sheng by 6 or 7 years. Don't think that the kid was young, but he had been carving for 6 or 7 years and was much better than Wang Sheng. Be more careful. Sift the soil once and use the fine yarn twice. The kid acted like a supervisor and ordered Wang Sheng in a bossy manner. With your current foundation, don't think about carving any stone. Practice slowly on the soil first. Chapter 209. The clay was not for Wang Sheng to sculpt, but for him to learn how to sculpt. If he couldn't even sculpt with the most common clay, then wouldn't it be impossible to sculpt the desired shape with a carving knife? This was the most basic part. Wang Sheng also understood it, so he worked very hard. He started with the simplest regular shapes, such as square, circle, triangle, and so on, and slowly transitioned to slightly more complicated patterns. There were similar steps on Earth, but it was just for basic training in art. No matter what kind of art it was, whether it was sculpting or carving, without a mold template, and without a foundation in art, it would be a nightmare. In the morning, he was asked to sculpt with clay at the young teacher's request. In the afternoon, Wang Sheng and the young teacher followed an old Taoist in the village to learn how to write. It couldn't be helped. The foundation of calligraphy was almost zero, so he had to learn from the beginning. In particular, the current calligraphy in this world was still in the stage of clerical script and semi-cursive script. Regular script had not appeared yet, so it was more and more difficult to practice. For the time being, Wang Sheng had not yet reached the point where he was worried about writing. His biggest problem now was holding the brush. Apart from a slight difference in the hair used, the writing brush was not much different from the ones on Earth. But the problem was that Wang Sheng's current strength was a little too great. Wang Sheng only needed to exert a bit of force to bend the steel tube of the brush. Needless to say, a brush made of bamboo could do the same. It was easy to just hold the brush, but it was another matter to move it according to his own will. Wang Sheng felt like he was holding a crisp and soft incense stick in his hand, and he was holding the brush and using it to write. If he could take care of the brush, he couldn't take care of the strokes. If he could take care of the strokes, he couldn't take care of the brush. Often, the brush would be crushed into pieces after writing half a word. After crushing the two brush barrels, the old Taoist did not allow Wang Sheng to use the brush, nor did he allow him to practice writing on the precious animal skin. Instead, he asked him to use a branch to make a small sand table, so that he could control his strength. Wang Sheng didn't think that the old Taoist was making a fuss over a minor issue, nor did he go against the old Taoist's intention. He obediently used the branch to slowly practice in the small sand table. With just a few words, Wang Sheng realized that he was still far from being able to control his strength. He had yet to fully unleash his terrifying strength. Wang Sheng was able to control his explosive strength without a problem. However, he was unable to control this kind of slow and static strength at all. Fortunately, Wang Sheng was patient enough and had enough mental endurance. He didn't care about the strange gazes and expressions of others. He slowly practiced and familiarized himself with it bit by bit. No matter what you do, there are no shortcuts. Wang Sheng himself had a better understanding of what he had just said. Since his basic skills in calligraphy were very poor, Wang Sheng practiced hard by himself. He wasn't afraid of ridicule or failure. Who wouldn't go to a meeting? Wang Sheng hadn't been dispirited even when he was called a waste, let alone practicing calligraphy. To be honest, the old Taoist wasn't responsible for teaching calligraphy. According to the little teacher, the old Taoist was actually very knowledgeable, but he didn't want to live with the Taoists of the Laojun Temple, so he found a small mountain village to live in seclusion. The small village was near a mountain and a river. The scenery was beautiful, and the villagers were simple. The old Taoist traveled everywhere in the past, and when he reached this place, he directly built a small Taoist temple at the side of the village and lived there. Usually, old Taoist didn't do any homework. The old Taoist often helped the villagers to see a doctor, so they became familiar with each other over time. As a matter of fact, the children in the village relied on the old Taoist to teach them how to read, and Wang Sheng also benefited from it. Wang Sheng knew how to conduct himself. He came to trouble others, so he definitely couldn't come empty-handed. All kinds of delicious food, drinks, and clothes were sent to the little teacher and the old Taoist every few days. After more than 10 days, Wang Sheng had become close to them as if they were a family. The old Taoist didn't care about meat or vegetables. He also ate meat and drank wine. If there was something, he enjoyed it. If there wasn't, he didn't force it. He lived a relaxed and comfortable life, with the demeanor of an otherworldly master. At first, Wang Sheng also immersed himself in learning calligraphy and didn't care about anything else. It wasn't until everyone was so familiar with each other that Wang Sheng asked the old Taoist about the identity of the statue in his Taoist temple. The small Taoist temple might be very irregular, so there was only one statue inside. It wasn't the 3 pure ones that Wang Sheng remembered from Taoism on Earth. That, of course, is the ancestor of Taoism, Taishang Laojun. The old Taoist and Wang Sheng hit it off very well, especially when it came to drinking. Therefore, he didn't make fun of Wang Sheng's elementary questions at all. Instead, he explained to Wang Sheng very seriously. Wang Sheng was still practicing calligraphy with him like a child. How much could he expect him to know? Since Wang Sheng asked, the old Taoist explained a little more so that Wang Sheng could understand a little more. The Taoism in this world was very similar to that on Earth. However, there was no saying of the 3 pure ones in one breath, nor was there the Tao Te Ching. Instead, there was another ancient book called the Taoist Scripture. The central idea was also similar. The great Tao was the simplest and governed by inaction, etc. Tranquility in inaction. When the old Taoist mentioned this, he spat at the Taoist priests in the Laojun temple. Are those guys in the Laojun temple worthy of it? They have long been lost in the colorful world. Tranquility, my A*S. Inaction, my A*S. With the wine that Wang Sheng offered, the old Taoist scolded those guys who were sanctimonious in his eyes. Then, the topic naturally turned to Wang Sheng. You have enough strength, the old Taoist said. There are very few people in the capital who can match your strength. You can now lift something heavy as if it were light. That's a very good cultivation, but it's still lacking a little. Continue to practice calligraphy. When you can lift something light as if it were heavy, it'll be almost there. As soon as these words came out, Wang Sheng suddenly had a whole new level of respect for this sloppy old Taoist who didn't seem to follow the precepts. Wang Sheng didn't think that he had shown much strength in terms of eyesight, but the old Taoist was able to see many things from Wang Sheng's performance when he was practicing calligraphy. He couldn't help but admire him, lifting something heavy as if it were light. Wang Sheng had indeed done it, not to mention others. When the long-legged beauty Aki tried to assassinate him on the road, Wang Sheng could wave the huge wood that weighed thousands of kilograms as if it were a small stick. But lifting something light as if it were heavy was really difficult. Whether it was holding a brush or a branch, it was actually just lifting something light. However, Wang Sheng couldn't do it as if it were heavy. It was common for him to use too much force and crush the brush and the branch, but it was still far from being heavy. As if he felt that his words were not convincing enough, the old Taoist casually picked up a chopstick and swung it left and right a few times. There was a whooshing sound in the air, as if what the old Taoist was holding in his hand was not a chopstick, but a huge wood used to attack a city. He casually stabbed at Wang Sheng. The sound of the wind and the power of the stab made Wang Sheng feel as if a train was about to hit him. Chapter 2:10. An expert. This was a true expert who had concealed his strength. Wang Sheng looked at the chopsticks that suddenly stopped in front of him. His eyes lit up like a pervert who had seen a real beauty. Wang Sheng also picked up a chopstick and waved it like the old Taoist. In the end, there was wind, but it did not have the momentum that the chopsticks in the old Taoist's hands carried. Wang Sheng did not give up and waved a few more times. Then the chopsticks broke. Looking at the old Taoist, nonchalantly put away his chopsticks and continued eating. Wang Sheng almost prostrated himself in admiration. What was an expert? This was an expert, from the beginning until now. If the old Taoist had not taken the initiative to show it, Wang Sheng would not have been able to see that the old Taoist was such a sharp expert. What realm was this? Even Wang Sheng could not guess it. No wonder when the shadow old eunuch talked about the Laojun temple, he kept saying that if he was lucky enough to meet a truly merciful person, he could come out alive. If the old Taoist had the cultivation of the Laojun temple, then the Laojun temple would not be any worse than a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. There are many experts in the Laojun temple, but they are all experts who have lost their way. Speaking of the experts in the Laojun temple, the old Taoist was even more dismissive. All they think about is cultivation and improving their realm all day long. They have completely forgotten the teachings left behind by the Laojun. All of them say that they want to make good karma, but in the end, it's still for the sake of building up the land, gold, silver, and jewelry. This topic could not be brought up. Once it was brought up, the old Taoist could not speak his complaints. On the surface, it seems that they want our sect to promote the world, but it almost completely deviates from the Laojuan's teachings of peace and inaction. Teaching people to kowtow and burn incense, teaching people to worship the Grand Supreme Elder, teaching people to believe in the Grand Supreme Elder's protection, but making people no longer believe in themselves. The old Taoist priest was dissatisfied, so he raised his voice and asked Wang Sheng, "There are a lot of people who worship the old Lord, and there are also a lot of people who ask for protection. But tell me, is this still following the teachings of the old Lord? When people burn incense and kowtow, aren't they just seeking psychological comfort?" Wang Sheng was certainly not as cynical as the old Taoist. The original intention of the Grand Elder must have been to enlighten the world. If the first thing everyone thinks of when they're troubled is to go to the temple of Lao Jun to burn incense and kowtow, then you have to admit that they do a good job. The old Taoist didn't expect Wang Sheng to disagree with him. He stared at Wang Sheng with wide eyes, seemingly waiting for Wang Sheng's explanation. However, there's one thing you're right about. It's not wrong to ask Lao Tzu for blessings, but the most important thing is to believe in yourself. Wang Sheng didn't completely refute the old Taoist thoughts, but he still affirmed some of them. Promote the world. The old Taoist's face finally looked a little better. He snorted coldly and didn't continue on this topic. Fortunately, Wang Sheng didn't completely refute the old Taoist. He didn't make the old Taoist fall out with him directly. However, the old Taoist was still unhappy today. After eating and drinking, he chased Wang Sheng and the little teacher away. Isn't it good to have a lot of land, gold, silver, and jewelry? Why does Grandpa Ling Su dislike it so much? The little teacher asked about Wang Sheng not long after they left. Many of the little teachers didn't understand the conversation between Wang Sheng and the old Taoist that day, so they only asked about it now. Ling Su was the Taoist name of the old Taoist. However, he was the only Taoist here. As long as people said Taoist, they would know that it was old Taoist Ling Su. No one called him by his Taoist name. Only children would call him Grandpa Ling Su. You don't understand. Wang Sheng stroked the back of the little teacher's head and said as they walked, Grandpa Ling Su is a real expert. You only need 6 feet to sleep in a spacious house. You only need to eat 3 meals a day if you're rich. When you understand this principle and are able to do it, you will be able to become a martial grandmaster like Elder Lu. Oh, the little teacher said. He firmly remembered Wang Sheng's words. He didn't need to be afraid if he didn't understand it now. He could slowly think about it in the future. This was what his master had taught him. Then do you understand these principles? The little teacher asked again. Are you also an expert? Me? I'm not an expert. Wang Sheng laughed. I understand the principles. It's easy to know, but difficult to do. Do you understand? I'm a layman. I like spacious houses, good land, gold, silver, jewelry, beautiful wives and concubines. Don't learn from me. There's no future. Tisk. The little teacher snorted disdainfully. Wang Sheng and the little teacher got further and further away from the small Taoist temple. In the small Taoist temple, old Taoist Ling Su had originally chased Wang Sheng and his little teacher away. He closed his eyes and pondered. At this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. This little fellow was interesting. That sentence, you only need 6 feet to sleep in a spacious house. You only need to eat 3 meals a day if you're rich. It really spoke to his heart. The next day, Wang Sheng still lived a regular life. He learned clay sculpting in the morning and calligraphy in the afternoon. When he reached the old Taoist side, the old Taoist didn't give Wang Sheng any face. His attitude was the same as before. Instead, he gave him a few more pointers. After a month, Wang Sheng's clay sculpting had taken shape. Although the clay sculptures weren't vivid and lifelike, they were already pleasing to the eye. As for his calligraphy, there was also a huge improvement. His writing was still ugly, but he could easily hold the brush without worrying about accidentally crushing it. The words he wrote were much better than before. Most importantly, the old Taoist allowed him to use the brush to dip in water on the animal skin to practice. This month's meticulous practice allowed Wang Sheng's understanding of strength to reach a higher level. Not being able to use the greatest strength to launch the most powerful attack every time was great. Being able to control one's own strength and use the most suitable strength to do the most suitable thing was true control. On the old Taoist side, Wang Sheng was still serving wine and meat every now and then. Anyway, Wang Sheng had plenty of gold coins. Even if the prices in the capital were higher than in other places, they weren't as high as in Carefree City. With such a large amount of money, it was easy for Wang Sheng to treat the old Taoist to good food and drinks. Old Master, do you know some of the records in the Temple of Lao Jun? During a conversation, the Temple of Lao Jun was mentioned again. Wang Sheng simply asked a question that he had always wanted to ask. What do you want to know? The old Taoist Ling Su didn't blame Wang Sheng at all for asking about the records of the Temple of Laojun. He drank and replied, "I've read some of the old books, but there aren't any in the last decade or so." As soon as he heard this, Wang Sheng knew that there was a way. He didn't want the records of the last decade or so, but the events of the previous dynasty. With his luck, Wang Sheng thought that he could only find the records in the Temple of Laojun. He didn't expect that he would get it so easily. The old Taoist Ling Su already knew about it. "Actually, I just want to know something about the previous dynasty." Wang Sheng didn't hide it and asked directly, "Do you know how the land of 1,000 extremities was formed? What's in it?" Chapter 211. How do you think the grounds of Thousand Despair was formed? Hearing this question, old Taoist Ling Su's expression didn't change in the slightest. "I heard it's a formation," Wang Sheng answered honestly. All the answers he knew were related to formations. Whether it was a protective formation or a sealing formation, they were all formations. Bulsh asterisk T. Old Taoist Ling Su gave Wang Sheng's answer a one-word evaluation. Then, under Wang Sheng's puzzled gaze, he leisurely drank and ate. When he was satisfied, he asked, "Have you ever seen a formation that covers a radius of thousands of miles?" Wang Sheng was speechless. Although he had been in this world for less than a year, he knew some general knowledge about formations. If there was really a formation that covered a radius of thousands of miles, what kind of scale would it have to be? What kind of organization could set up such a formation? Whether it was an aristocratic family or a sect, how could an organization that could set up such a powerful formation be destroyed? But no matter how doubtful Wang Sheng was before, he had no evidence, so he could only believe that explanation. Now that old Taoist Ling Su had given Wang Sheng a bulsh asterisk T, Wang Sheng felt relieved. After toasting the old Taoist, Wang Sheng asked sincerely, "Old Taoist, what do you know? Can you tell me?" Old Taoist enjoyed Wang Sheng's filial piety with a clear conscience. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he said slowly, "A formation doesn't have that much power. It's hundreds of formations." Wang Sheng almost fell to the ground. After waiting for a long time and denying an illogical answer, this was the result? "You don't believe me?" What kind of experience did old Taoist have? Even if Wang Sheng was wearing a virtual mask, he could not escape his eyes. He snorted disdainfully. "You don't believe me? Even if you go to Laojun Temple's scripture depository, you'll get the same answer." "Old Master, have you read all the materials in Laojun Temple?" Wang Sheng confirmed once again. Although he felt that there was no need for old Taoist Ling Su to lie about this matter, he still subconsciously asked. "Laojun Temple's scripture depository has to be rewritten every 50 years. The disdain in old Taoist Ling Su's eyes did not lessen at all. "I was the one who did it last time. What do you think?" Wang Sheng was suddenly in awe. No wonder. This sentence revealed a lot of information. Firstly, old Taoist Ling Su's calligraphy was definitely top-notch. Otherwise, Laojun Monastery, a sect with 1,000 years of inheritance, would definitely not choose him to copy the classics. Secondly, old Taoist Ling Su's identity was not simple. How could a simple Taoist have the honor of copying Laojun Temple scripture? Even a fool would know it was impossible. Thirdly, old Taoist Ling Su knew much more than Wang Sheng expected. This was what made Wang Sheng happy. "What's in the land of 1,000 devastations?" Wang Sheng asked eagerly. It was not easy to meet someone who might know the answer. Wang Sheng could not wait any longer. "You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask?" Old Taoist Ling Su's sloppy expression was very annoying. He drank wine and answered Wang Sheng perfunctorily. No matter how anxious Wang Sheng was, he was not anxious at all. "It's not recorded in Laojun Temple scripture." Wang Sheng asked in annoyance. "How many people want to know what's in the lands of 1,000 extremities? Do you think that the Old Lord Monastery would still be able to survive until now if it knew?" Old Taoist Ling Su's words directly shattered Wang Sheng's last bit of hope. "Speaking of which, isn't there a kid in Carefree City who can freely enter and leave the land of 1,000 devastations?" Old Taoist Ling Su cast a sidelong glance at Wang Sheng and asked, "You're from Carefree City too. Why didn't you find a chance to ask?" Wasn't Wang Sheng the only person who could freely enter and leave the land of 1,000 devastations? If Wang Sheng knew, why would he ask? Wang Sheng did not immediately remove the disguise on his face to reveal his identity. Old Taoist Ling Su's identity was too mysterious, and his cultivation was too strong. He could even play with a chopstick, leaving Wang Sheng in the dust. If his identity was exposed, who knew how he would die? Don't look at how the two of them were close friends, eating and drinking together. That was because their relationship was simple. If his ability to enter and exit the lands of despair were to be exposed, Wang Sheng didn't dare to guarantee that old Taoist Ling Su wouldn't be able to maintain his current state of mind. Can you tell me in detail how the land of 1,000 devastations was formed? Wang Sheng took a step back and tried to find the origin of the land of 1,000 devastations. Sure. This time, old Taoist Ling Su did not say much and nodded. Just as Wang Sheng was feeling happy, old Taoist Ling Su suddenly asked, "What are you offering in exchange?" Wang Sheng was stumped. Old Taoist Ling Su did not have any obligation to explain the land of 1,000 devastations to Wang Sheng. From the information that had just been revealed, old Taoist Ling Su was likely to have a close relationship with the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord. Although old Taoist Ling Su did not like many of the practices of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord and even hid in the countryside because of it, he was still a member of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord. It was almost impossible for someone who was qualified to copy the ancient records of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord to leak the secrets of the temple. However, since old Taoist Ling Su asked like this, there was an opening instead. It was just that Wang Sheng did not know what he had to pay in order to get it. "What do you want?" After thinking for a while, Wang Sheng did not know how to answer old Taoist Ling Su, so he asked the old Taoist directly, "Aren't you learning carving?" Obviously, old Taoist had already thought about what he wanted. He took a sip of wine, smacked his lips a few times, and said, "Help me carve a statue of the Grand Supreme Lord." So simple. Wang Sheng did not think that old Taoist Ling Su was such an easy person to talk to. There must be other requirements behind this statue of the Grand Supreme Lord. Sure enough, old Taoist Ling Su stated his request. The people of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord recently want to carve 10,000 statues of the Grand Supreme Lord on Mount Grand Supreme Lord outside the capital. After the statues are completed, it will be renamed Longevity Mountain of the Grand Supreme Lord. Now, the few Taoists of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord want to take advantage of the momentum to expand the foundation of the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord several times. Help me carve a statue of the Grand Supreme Lord. It must be able to suppress the momentum of 10,000 statues of the Grand Supreme Lord. It must be able to completely suppress their current momentum. Old Taoist Ling Su looked at Wang Sheng very seriously and said, "If you can do it, I will tell you what you want to know. In addition, I can also teach you how to lift something light as if it were heavy." Hearing this request, Wang Sheng's first reaction was, "How is that possible?" Wang Sheng was learning carving, but he was just a young apprentice who had just started learning. If the Temple of the Grand Supreme Lord wanted to carve a statue of the Grand Supreme Lord on Longevity Mountain, it must be the best sculptor who could do it. Be it in terms of quantity or quality, Wang Sheng would never be able to catch up. Chapter 212. 10,000 statues of Lao Jun decorated the entire Mount Lao Jun. This was the posture of turning Mount Lao Jun into a sacred mountain. The amount of money, resources, and manpower involved would be enough to drag down a slightly smaller family. Not to mention wealth, just manpower alone was enough to beat Wang Sheng by 1,000 miles. In order to stand out this time, Lao Jun Temple would definitely mobilize many sculpting masters. Was it possible for a beginner like Wang Sheng to suppress so many masters and gurus? Do you think that a newbie like me, who has just learned carving and has yet to learn how to use a stone, who can only play with mud, could defeat so many grandmaster carvers? Wang Sheng simply did not know how to describe his feelings. No. Old Taoist Ling Su answered without hesitation. Then why did you make such a request? Wang Sheng was really speechless. What was wrong with old Taoist? Was he stupid? If you can't do it, then think of a way. Old Taoist Ling Su ignored Wang Sheng's question and continued to drink. In any case, this is my request. If you can't do it, then you'll have to find a way to enter the Grand Supreme Lord's temple and read those books. Old Master, how much weaker are the experts in Laojun Temple compared to you? Wang Sheng decided not to dwell on this question. It was better to think of another way. A lot weaker. Old Taoist Ling Su's words made Wang Sheng's eyes light up. A lot weaker. There seemed to be a way. But then Old Taoist added, but they have a lot of people. You can probably beat one of them if there are 10 of you, but there are at least 100 of them. You can slowly practice. Hearing that, Wang Sheng knew it was hopeless. He erased the idea from his mind. Could it be that he could only follow Old Taoist's request and suppress those masters and gurus? Wang Sheng knew his own level. With his current level, he would be laughed at if he went out to sculpt anything. If he couldn't stand it, he could only ask Old Lu to sculpt one. A guru should be able to suppress some masters and gurus, right? He just did not know what kind of price Old Lu would make him pay. If he had to pay a higher price, Wang Sheng might have to consider whether it was worth it. This might not be the only way to get the ancient books of Laojun Temple. Perhaps he could buy a chance to borrow it by donating thousands of gold coins to Laojun Temple. If I can sculpt an Laojun statue that can suppress Laojun Mountain of Longevity, won't Laojun Temple still become more famous? Wang Sheng suddenly thought of a crucial question and asked, in the end, it's all about the statue of Laojun, and Laojun Temple is the orthodoxy now, isn't it? Then it doesn't matter what method you use. You can't discredit Taishang Laojun, but you can suppress those guys from Laojun Temple. Old Taoist Ling Su suddenly changed his request after being stunned for a while. Then no matter what method you use, you can't discredit Taishang Laojun, but you can suppress those guys from Laojun Temple. Old Taoist Ling Su suddenly changed his request after being stunned for a while. Wang Sheng wished he could slap himself. Who asked you to talk too much? Now the difficulty was even higher. Sculpting an Laojun statue was at most a matter of craftsmanship. It was very possible for him to ask Old Lu to do it. But this time he was at a loss. Old Taoist Ling Su could not suppress those Taoists from Laojun Temple all his life. How could a dabbler like Wang Sheng do it? Moreover, under the guidance of those Taoists, Laojun Temple's incense was flourishing and its reputation was increasing. On the surface, it seemed that they were doing well. What ability did he have to suppress Laojun Temple? You're so much better than them. Can't you just teach them a lesson and make them lower their heads? Wang Sheng really had no other way. He could only give old Taoist Ling Su a bad idea. Why make things difficult for a junior like me? Beating them up is just for me to vent my anger. They won't lower their heads and admit their mistakes. Old Taoist Ling Su shook his head. It was not like old Taoist Ling Su had never taught them a lesson, but those young people stiffened their necks. Was it wrong to promote Laojun Temple? Was it wrong to let Laojun Temple's influence grow day by day? Old Taoist Ling Su was speechless. Old Taoist Ling Su was not good at debating. He could not persuade the other party with words, but he could not kill them either. He could only leave. To put it bluntly, it was just a battle of ideas. It was not some irreconcilable hatred. There was no point in fighting to the death. Moreover, if old Taoist Ling Su made a move, he would be accused of bullying the weak. It's settled then. Old Taoist Ling Su made up his mind and made his request. They still have more than a year to prepare. If you can suppress them, I guarantee you everything you want. I'll also tell you something that's not recorded in the books of Laojun Temple. Something that's not recorded? Wang Sheng asked subconsciously. Yes, something that's not recorded. Old Taoist Ling Su answered with certainty. For example, what's in the land of 1,000 despair that you really want to know? Didn't you just say you don't know? Wang Sheng stared at old Taoist Ling Su with wide eyes. I don't know everything, but I know one of them. Old Taoist Ling Su answered calmly. The most important one. Wang Sheng stared into old Taoist Ling Su's eyes. Old Taoist Ling Su also looked at Wang Sheng calmly. His expression did not change, and his eyes were clear and deep. Let's do it. Wang Sheng seemed to be sure that old Taoist Ling Su was not lying. He gritted his teeth and agreed to old Taoist Ling Su's request. There was still more than a year before Laojun Temple would take action. Wang Sheng still had time to plan carefully and think about how to operate it. When old Taoist Ling Su heard Wang Sheng's words, for some reason, he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. It was as if Wang Sheng only needed to nod and everything would be done. Old Taoist Ling Su paused and asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I'll think about it first." Wang Sheng could not think of a proper solution immediately. There were many things that he had to go through before he could give an answer. Old Taoist Ling Su also knew that it was a little difficult for Wang Sheng to think of a solution immediately. He did not continue to ask and continued to drink by himself. Wang Sheng did not care about eating and drinking at the side. He frowned and began to ponder. As for the little teacher who taught Wang Sheng the basic skills of carving, he did not seem to understand them at all. He did not speak, but his mouth never stopped from the beginning to the end. After returning to his residence, Wang Sheng lay on his bed and suddenly asked the little teacher, who was also lying on his bed not far away, "Do you know how to carve the statue of Lao Jun?" "Yes." The little teacher did not fall asleep even though he was lying down. He answered without thinking, "It's easy to carve according to the appearance. It's just that I can't carve the charm in it." As he spoke, the little teacher got up and sat on his bed. He asked curiously, "Do you really want to carve a statue of Lao Jun to surpass those masters invited by Laojun Temple?" Chapter 213. What do you think? Wang Sheng asked his little teacher. "Although I'm just an apprentice and don't have a deep understanding of carving," the little teacher said to Wang Sheng seriously. The little teacher said seriously to Wang Sheng, "However, you're not even a match for me. I have high hopes for Lao Junwan." Looking at the little guy's serious attitude, Wang Sheng almost couldn't help but give him the middle finger. If he didn't know that he was a minor and couldn't be harmed, Wang Sheng would definitely despise him. Why? Old Taoist Ling Su insisted that Wang Sheng must beat the Taoist priests of the Laojun Temple, but he didn't put his hope on himself. Instead, he thought that Wang Sheng could get a great master like Old Man Lu to help him. The little teacher taught Wang Sheng the basics very seriously and didn't do it half-heartedly. But why did he think that he couldn't do it? As an elite sniper, Wang Sheng had told Song Yin before that he hoped that others would look down on him and ignore him so that he could better complete his mission. But this didn't mean that Wang Sheng didn't have anger. Wang Sheng's anger was expressed in his cultivation at first, which made Song Yin and the others look at him with new eyes and mouths. Now that even the little teacher and old Taoist didn't think highly of him, Wang Sheng would surprise them even more. In his dream, Wang Sheng seemed to have returned to Earth and was watching a movie by himself. The two huge statues of Agonis, the Pillar of the King, in The Lord of the Rings appeared in Wang Sheng's dream. They were so glorious and domineering. Then, Wang Sheng opened his eyes. The scene in the dream seemed to be guiding Wang Sheng and pointing out the key to solving the problem for Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng lay down and pondered for a while. Then, a smile appeared on his face. When he was carrying out his mission on Earth, Wang Sheng had been to Leshan Buddha. The mountain is a Buddha, and the Buddha is a mountain. Wasn't this a ready-made hint? Is there a more appropriate idea than this? As long as the Buddha statue was changed to the Laojun statue, wouldn't it be the best in the world? Carving the largest Laojun statue in the world would attract more attention than carving 10,000 smaller Laojun statues on Mount Laojun by the Laojun Temple. It could completely suppress the Laojun Temple. Let's do that. Wang Sheng had already thought of a countermeasure. Even because of old Taoist Ling Su's later request, Wang Sheng had already thought of a countermeasure. Early the next morning, when Wang Sheng went out to buy food and wine, he began asking people who were familiar with the surrounding terrain of the capital and asked about the situation of the surrounding mountains. If he wanted to carve a mountain, the mountain had to be made entirely of stone. Wang Sheng also began to ponder how he could quickly improve his carving skills. If he could avoid using a great Grandmaster level martial sage, it would be best not to owe so many favors. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome to repay them. I'm almost done with sculpting. It's time to practice with stones. The little teacher did not waste Wang Sheng's time. Before Wang Sheng could fully understand the situation of the mountains around the capital, the little teacher had already sped up Wang Sheng's progress. He still started with the simplest regular shapes, such as squares and circles. Then, he slowly transitioned to more complicated shapes. Of course, the tools he used became hammers and chisels. Only at this stage could he be considered to have truly begun to carve. Not only the little teacher, but even old Taoist Ling Su's calligraphy had also completed the most basic enlightenment. He began to learn the structure and strokes of the characters. To put it simply, he could now use a brush to write some decent words on the animal skin. He would no longer be able to write those horrible scribbles from before. Wang Sheng found an old man in the suburbs who was very familiar with the surroundings of the capital. He used to travel and asked about the surrounding mountains. The old man was very familiar with them. When he heard that Wang Sheng was looking for a stone mountain, preferably a whole stone mountain, the old man gave Wang Sheng the most surprising answer. The capital was said to be surrounded by 6 rivers. 6 rivers surrounded the capital, and 2 of them were very wide. There was a huge stone mountain at the place where the 2 big rivers and another relatively smaller river converged. The part above the water was more than 300 meters high. It could be said to be one of the highest points around the capital. The 3 rivers converged on a huge stone. Wasn't this almost the same terrain as the Leshan giant Buddha on Earth? He did not know if it was a coincidence or not. Anyway, Wang Sheng had found the most suitable location. Of course, it was not enough to just listen. Wang Sheng had to see it on the spot. Under the guidance of the old man, he rushed to the place without stopping. When he saw it, Wang Sheng did not know what to say. The location was really too suitable. Wang Sheng originally thought that it would be like the Leshan giant Buddha. It turned out that the mountain was at the center of the intersection of the 3 rivers. It became a huge pillar hanging in the middle of the 3 rivers. The whole stone mountain had been washed by the 3 rivers, forming 3 huge facades. They were as straight as cliffs. Since it had been washed by the water for a long time, it could only be said that its foundation was very solid. With such a terrain, as long as Wang Sheng did not start carving from the 3 straight cliffs near the river and dug from the top to the bottom, outsiders would not be able to find it all. However, that would increase the difficulty of carving by a few times. It might be possible if it was a great master like Master Lu, but Wang Sheng was still a rookie. It was almost impossible for him to complete it. Out of caution, Wang Sheng climbed the huge stone pillar barehanded to investigate it. The result was good. The place was really suitable. The foundation was solid, and the stone pillar was thick enough to carve a huge statue of Lao Tzu. However, there was one thing that made it more difficult. The huge stone pillar had withstood the merciless scouring of the 3 rivers. It was very solid, and it was a few times harder than the stones that Wang Sheng was practicing on. Even with ordinary tools, one would have to change the chisel after carving a few times, let alone with ordinary techniques. Moreover, that was not including the additional hardships. After the on-site investigation, Wang Sheng rushed back to the small village with the food and drinks he bought. He continued practicing his basic skills with the young master and the old Taoist. Your cooking method is quite novel. The old Taoist priest was now used to eating Wang Sheng's personally cooked dishes. He could no longer stomach the low-quality food he had eaten in the past. As he ate the delicacies, he commented on the food as if he was giving Wang Sheng face. That was basically Wang Sheng's daily routine. Apart from practicing his basic skills, he would eat, sleep, and cultivate with the old Taoist's young master. His days were very simple. Just as Wang Sheng was inspecting the terrain and thinking about how to make his move, Master Lu unexpectedly arrived at the small village. Although it was unexpected, it wasn't. Wang Sheng's young master was Master Lu's last disciple, and Master Lu was there to guide his little disciple. He also wanted to see how Wang Sheng was doing at the same time. After all, he had promised the old blacksmith, so he could not be too perfunctory, could he? Chapter 2:14. It must be said that although the little teacher was young, he did not skimp on his work at all when he laid the foundation for Wang Sheng. Needless to say, a large part of it was because Wang Sheng had an upright attitude when it came to learning sculpting. He did not slack off. Moreover, Wang Sheng's improvement in his cultivation base and control were the main reasons why Wang Sheng's foundation improved so quickly. Whether it was strength or control, Wang Sheng was much better than the little teacher. It was just that he was not as talented as the little teacher in certain aspects. Nonetheless, it was clear that Wang Sheng was superior to the little teacher in terms of pure craftsmanship when it came to sculpting the same basic works. You're almost done with the basic techniques in sculpting. After Master Lu saw him instruct Wang Sheng to carve a simple pumpkin stone sculpture, he commented, "Next, you can do something more complicated." Wang Sheng nodded and continued to wait for Master Lu's comment. "Honestly, your current technique is very proper and conforms to the rules." Master Lu started off with praises, which was pleasing to the ears. Wang Sheng was proud that he was able to achieve that in just a little over a month. "Your work is proper and not off the mark. You carve whatever you can. You're full of craftsmanship." Master Lu smiled as he ate Wang Sheng's food and drank the fine wine that Wang Sheng gave him. He commented seriously, "But if this goes on, you'll only reach the level of a craftsman at best. You won't become a famous sculptor, much less a master. Do you understand?" What was there to be confused about? It was nothing more than Wang Sheng's current progress. He was at the level of drawing a tiger from a cat at most. He would at most rely on copying a character from a model. Without his own style and artistic conception, he was only a sculptor, so there was nothing he could not understand. Wang Sheng was already satisfied that he managed to achieve what he did without any foundation in a little over a month. Master Lu was not belittling Wang Sheng by saying that. Could Wang Sheng not hear the satisfaction in his tone? If you want to become a famous sculptor or a master, you'll have to sculpt naturally, but you'll also have to have your own style, a style that's unique to you. Master Lu was sincerely guiding Yang Ming and did not hide anything. Although it's difficult, you have to pursue it. What do I have to do to achieve that? Wang Sheng asked seriously. First, practice. Master Lu did not beat around the bush. He answered quickly, "You'll need to practice a lot. Just like the killing techniques you've cultivated, you'll need to familiarize yourself with them first. Practice makes perfect. Once you're so familiar with it that you can achieve the desired effect with a swing of the hammer with any posture or technique, you can proceed to the next step." Your previous practice, to put it bluntly, was just to practice the basics of carving. It's the power of every hammer and chisel. After mastering the effects of each strike, you should actually put down these techniques and focus on the overall situation. Master Lu continued to guide Yang Ming. At this point, you can stop paying attention to the effect of each hammer and chisel. You can even let go completely and rely on your imagination to complete a certain image. When you can completely rely on your imagination to complete the overall situation, you'll realize that sculpting isn't that difficult at all. You'll just have to use your previous basics to sketch out the image in your imagination. Master Lu chuckled and said, "The hammer and chisel are nothing more than the brush in your hands. Be confident before you start, got it?" Wang Sheng nodded again. Master Lu was surprised, but it did not stop him from admiring Wang Sheng. Although he did not know where Wang Sheng's words came from, there was no mistaking the meaning behind it. "At this point, you'll actually be able to sculpt something that has your own style," Master Lu added. "If people aren't humble, they'll reluctantly call you a famous sculptor." What happens after that? Wang Sheng did not stand on ceremony. He continued to ask about the content after that. Follow this pace and continue to be familiar with it. No matter what you're sculpting, you'll be able to think of what you're sculpting as soon as you see the material. Your technique will be natural, and you'll be able to do whatever you want. Master Lu did not blame Wang Sheng for running away when he did not know how to walk away. He answered every question. At this point, you'll basically be a real famous sculptor. After that, you'll be able to do whatever you want and forget everything that you've thought about and learned. Master Lu was in high spirits. Without waiting for Wang Sheng to ask, he continued, calm yourself down, and use the most basic and orthodox method to carve a large number of objects carefully. You'll realize that even though you're using the same method and the same materials, the objects you're carving have lost their craftsmanship. At this point, even though you're sculpting with the most orthodox technique, people will see your shadow in them. Master Lu looked into Wang Sheng's eyes and said seriously, "At this point, you'll be a grandmaster." "What about a grandmaster?" Wang Sheng played along. He continued to ask when he saw Master Lu getting excited. "It's even easier to be a grandmaster." Master Lu smiled. "Continue to sculpt seriously and follow your heart's desire. You can sculpt however you want, however you want, however you want, and however you feel comfortable. The things you carve will feel comfortable and natural to others, but the nature will have your shadow. That's when you're almost at the level of a great grandmaster." Wang Sheng's little teacher, who was also Master Lu's last disciple, was listening to Master Lu's words. However, he was still young, after all. He could hear it clearly and remember it well, but he could not understand it. Nevertheless, Master Lu had taught him that it did not matter if he did not understand it. He should remember it first and ponder it slowly. This was the little teacher's method. He should remember it first and think about it later. As for Wang Sheng, he fell into deep thought. Master Lu's description sounded easy, but Wang Sheng knew the hard work involved was not something that could be completed in a few years or even a decade. Moreover, the process described by Master Lu seemed to contain some principles that Wang Sheng had heard before, and it seemed interesting. After Wang Sheng pondered for a while, Master Lu was done eating and drinking. He looked up at Wang Sheng and asked with a smile, "Young fella, how much do you understand? Tell me about it." "A little." Wang Sheng was not modest. He was being taught by a grandmaster. It was a rare opportunity, so how could he miss it? Even if he misunderstood it, he still wanted to ask for guidance lest he regretted missing it. To put it simply, it's roughly these few concepts. "Please give me some pointers and see if I'm right," Wang Sheng said humbly. "Tell me about it," Master Lu asked seriously as his interest was piqued. "Mountains are mountains and water are water. Then mountains aren't mountains and water aren't water." As Wang Sheng combined his own understanding and memories, he said, "In the end, the mountain is still the mountain, and the water is still the water." As soon as he said that, Master Lu's aura changed. Chapter 2:15. Back in the capital's heavenly craft workshop, the old blacksmith was enlightened because of Wang Sheng's words, which allowed him to break through his bottleneck and increase his realm. That was a popular story in their small circle. Why was Wang Sheng able to learn the basics of sculpting from Master Lu, the disciple of a master sculptor? Was it not because Wang Sheng had enlightened the old blacksmith? However, Wang Sheng could clearly see that Master Lu seemed to have started the same process. "Do you have to be so dramatic? Do you have to be so dramatic? Again? Not done?" Wang Sheng complained in his heart, but his hands were not idle. He quickly took away the tables, chairs, wine, and dishes around Master Lu, then pulled the little teacher a certain distance away. Seeing that Master Lu was about to trigger the spiritual energy to temper his body, the things around him were not suitable, and it was not safe to be too close. Wang Sheng could not care less, but the little teacher was clearly young and his cultivation was not high enough, so he could not get too close. He had yet to complete his enlightenment and had yet to reach the first-degree realm. The huge amount of spiritual energy emitted when the spiritual energy was tempering his body could still hurt him. After settling the little teacher down, Wang Sheng suddenly felt something in his heart. He turned his gaze in a certain direction and saw the figure of old Taoist Ling Su. When Wang Sheng had a meal with the little teacher and Master Lu earlier, Master Lu had even given the little teacher and Wang Sheng some pointers. At the end of the day, Master Lu was teaching his disciple and imparting skills. No matter how close Master Lu and old Taoist Ling Su were, it was not suitable for old Taoist Ling Su to be present. However, when Master Lu triggered the spiritual energy to temper his body, all of a sudden, old Taoist Ling Su sensed it right away, even though he was over a kilometer away. So he quickly rushed over. He did it for no other reason than to protect Master Lu. Master Lu was the only one who could trigger the spiritual energy to temper his body. The other people in the village did not have much of a cultivation base, and even Wang Sheng was considered the most powerful. However, it was impossible for Wang Sheng to cause such a huge commotion. Sure enough, it was Master Lu. The old Taoist Ling Su could not be bothered with anything else. He quickly circled the area a few times to make sure that there were no outsiders. Only then did he sit at the table that Wang Sheng had moved away and began to stand guard for Master Lu. Once they were seated, old Taoist Ling Su hooked his finger at Wang Sheng. Without saying a word, Wang Sheng smiled and served the old Taoist wine. He obediently sat at the table with his little teacher and watched as Master Lu tempered his body with spiritual qi. At such a close distance, the immense spiritual energy would inevitably cleanse Wang Sheng's body. That being said, those were just small additional benefits. The real benefit was the favor that Wang Sheng owed Master Lu for his advancement. This was a genuine favor that could not be avoided. To put it bluntly, even if Wang Sheng used this favor to ask Master Lu to personally sculpt the statue of Lao Tzu, Master Lu would definitely agree to it without hesitation. Nonetheless, it was still too early to think about that. Wang Sheng still accompanied the old Taoist and drank while waiting for Master Lu to complete his advancement. Fortunately, Wang Sheng had experienced the scene of the old blacksmith's advancement. Therefore, Wang Sheng did not find it strange that Master Lu took more than 10 hours to temper his body with spiritual qi. This time, Master Lu's advancement started at noon the day before and was completed the next morning. It took a total of 18 hours. Based on this point alone, Master Lu's cultivation base seemed to be higher than the old blacksmith's. As soon as Master Lu woke up from his advancement state, he saw Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su. The little teacher was too young. He could not hold on until midnight and was sent home by Wang Sheng to sleep. Now, only Wang Sheng and Ling Su were waiting. Master Lu's first sentence was self-deprecating. I was still giving you pointers, but you turned around and gave me pointers before I could finish. I'm ashamed. He was clearly saying that to Wang Sheng. Although he did not explicitly express his gratitude, it was obvious from his tone. Some things did not need to be said out loud. At their level, they naturally knew what was going on. This is your own good fortune. It has nothing to do with me. Wang Sheng hurriedly declined modestly. All he had done was relay the words of those experts on Earth. He really did not dare to say that he had contributed much to it. However, it was obvious that Master Lu and the old Taoist Ling Su did not think so. The words came out of Wang Sheng's mouth. So how could the credit be given to someone else? The three of them were in high spirits. They continued drinking as a form of celebration for Master Lu. As they drank and chatted, they naturally mentioned the words that enlightened Master Lu. It sounded a little hazy, and I don't know what it means. The old Taoist Ling Su's first comment was to belittle Master Lu without holding back. However, he changed the topic and began to praise Master Lu. But if you think about it carefully, it does make a little bit of sense. It's not just a little bit. Master Lu advanced because of those words, so he naturally understood it the most. He retorted, "The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. I'll go back and talk to those old fellows. They might have a chance to break through too." Master Lu valued certain things very much. He did not forget to turn to Wang Sheng after saying that. "Don't worry. Even if I go back and talk to them, they'll still owe you a favor. I was just saying it casually. Please don't say that." What else could Wang Sheng say? He could only decline modestly again. "Your casual remarks saved me a decade of detours." Master Lu responded with a smile, but he did not continue the topic. It seemed like he had already come up with an idea. Wang Sheng did not value it at all. Since Master Lu insisted on giving him a favor, Wang Sheng would not push it away. However, Wang Sheng was curious about something else. "Master Lu, is it convenient for you to reveal your cultivation base?" "You don't have to call me that. You can call me Old Lu if you want." Master Lu did not answer Wang Sheng's question directly. Instead, he addressed Wang Sheng. "I won't call you little assassin from now on. What do you think?" "Sure, up to you." Wang Sheng had never cared about the way he addressed him. How big of a deal was it? Wang Sheng nodded without hesitation. Since you're asking about my cultivation base, I haven't paid attention to it for a long time. Master Lu smiled and clinked glasses with Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. After downing the wine in one gulp, he said, I don't dare to be careless in front of the old Taoist. What I did just now is considered as me advancing to the 8th stage. Uffed. Wang Sheng almost spat out the mouthful of wine in his mouth. An 8th stage expert? In other words, Master Lu was already a 7th stage expert when they were in the capital. Was he a super expert like the shadow old eunuch and Frostly? How did you guys cultivate? Wang Sheng looked at Master Lu and the old Taoist. He was so envious that he was drooling. Chapter 2:16. Master Lu was an 8th stage expert, but he dared not be careless when he faced the old Taoist Ling Su. What was the old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation base? Some things should not be pondered too deeply, or the more one thought about it, the more horrifying it would be. Fortunately, he had been following the rules since he came here. He learned carving from little teacher and calligraphy from the old Taoist. If he had any ulterior motives, his grave would have been covered in weeds by now. Be it blacksmithing or carving, you should use spiritual qi when you need it. Doing it is equivalent to cultivating. The old Taoist Ling Su glanced at Wang Sheng in disdain and said slowly, Do you think you can become a master with that stupid strength of yours? Carving requires spiritual qi too? Wang Sheng's eyes widened. Why didn't you tell me earlier? It was no wonder these masters had such high cultivation bases. If they needed to use spiritual qi, their cultivation bases would naturally be high. Over the years, he had been sculpting without a moment's rest, and his own spiritual qi was also constantly being consumed in his cultivation. In terms of intensity, it was equivalent to intense battles every day, so it would be strange if one's cultivation base was low. If Wang Sheng had known this would happen, he would have used spiritual qi during his practice. Fortunately, he was afraid that using spiritual qi would cause his foundation to be shaky, so he relied on his own strength to hold on. Of course, his strength was enough for him to do the same practice many times without feeling tired. That's normal. It's better to learn honestly during the foundation stage. Master Lu smiled slowly and said, Don't you see that my little disciple is learning from the basics? He can't even use spiritual qi. The little teacher was still young, and his soul had yet to be enlightened, so it was only natural that he could not use spiritual qi. However, Wang Sheng knew that Master Lu must have his reasons for teaching him at this time. Forget it. I owe you such a big favor, so I'll guide you for a few days no matter what. Master Lu smiled when he saw how indignant Wang Sheng was. Based on your current standard, you're not at the stage where you can directly use spiritual qi to carve, but you're not far from it. However, there's not much difference. I'll stay here for the next few days to give you pointers. Wang Sheng was overjoyed. Master Lu's guidance was much more professional than the little teacher. After a day of rest and preparation, Master Lu personally guided Wang Sheng from the second day onwards. Master Lu guided Wang Sheng one by one, from the selection of materials to the conception of the sculpture to the sculpting technique. During the carving process, Master Lu even personally demonstrated to Wang Sheng how to use the most correct method and how to incorporate spiritual qi into the carving technique. He taught Wang Sheng step by step and patiently. Wang Sheng did not want to waste the opportunity to be personally taught by Master Lu, so he studied very carefully. He followed Master Lu's instructions and did not slack off at all. Fortunately, Wang Sheng's cultivation base was already at the 3rd layer black transformation, so he was very experienced in using spiritual qi from the acupuncture points. Under Master Lu's guidance, he slowly learned the essence of carving. Speaking of which, the method of using it was somewhat similar to combat, but it was not exactly the same. Fighting required explosive power and continuous output of spiritual qi. It was the same when sculpting, but the requirement for explosive power was not so strong, and the endurance was even stronger. However, in essence, there was no difference between the two. In the end, it was the way to use spiritual energy. Master Lu was very responsible. He taught every technique and every tool in great detail. How spiritual energy flowed in the body was different for everyone, but how to use it in the hands was explained in great detail. Master Lu taught him how to use a hammer and a chisel. Even so, Wang Sheng benefited a lot in just a few days, and his technique improved a lot as well. Seeing as Wang Sheng was almost done learning, old Taoist Ling Su did not stay idle either. He also taught him how to use spiritual energy in calligraphy. It was the same basic teaching with the same neatest technique, but it brought about a tremendous change. Wang Sheng was simply too surprised. He had been in a constant state of excitement for the past few days. Having two experts of that level teaching him how to temper the use of spiritual energy in his daily techniques was simply a blessing that he could not ask for. The teacher was serious, and the learner was diligent. In less than 10 days, Wang Sheng was already able to use spirit energy in sculpting and calligraphy without making any mistakes. All that was left was the process of practice making perfect. Master Lu was leaving to return to the Heavenly Craft Workshop in the capital. On the day of his departure, Wang Sheng personally cooked a table full of delicacies for Master Lu and old Taoist Ling Su. Master Lu, old Taoist Ling Su, Wang Sheng's teacher, and Wang Sheng were enjoying themselves when two people walked into the village along a small path in a relaxed manner. They were an old man and a young man. The old man looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. He had white hair and a youthful complexion, and he looked hale and hearty. The young man was only in his 20s. He was gorgeously dressed and exuded a youthful and sharp aura. It was obvious that he was not a mediocre person. The two of them walked at a steady pace. Not far behind them were dozens of men in black. They were all armed, and each of them was holding a metal block covered with various patterns. They were following the two of them. Chapter 217. If the worry-free city lord or his butler were here, they would definitely recognize that this old man was the array master who created the pendant back then. Someone actually found this array master and relied on him to track Wang Sheng more than a decade ago. It cannot be denied that anything could happen when the benefits reached a certain level. The old array master never thought that a work from more than a decade ago could still be excavated and sold for a good price, especially when someone paid him a huge sum of money to track the current owner of the pendant. For the sake of the money, the old array master reluctantly found the place where Wang Sheng stayed. The young man was the one who hired him. After observing for 3 days and confirming that there was nothing unusual in the village, the old array master brought a large number of people to surround the village. All of this was for the secret of the grounds of thousand despair that Wang Sheng had grasped. Wang Sheng was really cunning. Everyone thought that he had already escaped to some unknown place. Who would have thought that he was actually hiding in an inconspicuous little village on the outskirts of the capital? But this was also good. No one would have thought of it, and no one would be able to share this secret. Those people guarding the heavenly workshop were all fools. Did they not know that Wang Sheng would change his appearance after opening the two-phase exquisite seal box? That he would not be able to detect his aura? The young man was the man who had the jade pendant on his chest shattered when the exquisite seal box was opened. After discovering that Wang Sheng had opened the seal box and his subordinates could not find Wang Sheng, he immediately made a decision to find the array master who created the pendant. The result was surprising. He really found the array master, and the array master actually had the means to find Wang Sheng. Of course, this was also thanks to the fact that Wang Sheng was still moving around the suburbs of the capital. From time to time, he would leave behind a faint scent. Otherwise, no matter how good the array master's little bee's sense of smell was, it would not be able to track the scent from half a month ago. Once he thought that Wang Sheng and his secret would fall into his hands, the young man felt a burst of excitement. The array master had already been bribed by him. If he could help to capture Wang Sheng, he would be able to obtain a set of array diagram that he had been dreaming of. Only a peerless array diagram would be able to buy such a formation expert. The metal block in the hands of the black-clothed subordinates was a binding array formation provided by the array master. Once the formation was activated, the entire village would be enveloped by the formation. Even if there were earth-shattering changes happening inside, no one outside would be able to sense anything. The array formation had already been activated. No matter how great Wang Sheng's ability was, it was impossible for him to escape from the village. At this time, the young man could carefully enjoy the joy of capturing Wang Sheng like a cat playing with a mouse. However, Wang Sheng was not a person who would give up without a fight. This could be seen from the fact that he would rather pass through the grounds of Thousand Despair and escape to the worry-free city. But so what? The young man had already prepared an inescapable net. Wang Sheng was definitely trapped. If he couldn't get out of this village, where could he escape to? In addition, the young man had brought more than 10 experts with him. The weakest one was in the 4th stage realm, and the strongest one was in the 6th stage realm. With so many people to deal with a junior at the peak of the 2nd stage realm like Wang Sheng, it was enough to suppress him to death. Now, he could only hope that Wang Sheng would be able to adapt to the circumstances. Otherwise, the young man would not mind letting Wang Sheng suffer a little before having a friendly talk with him. The 4 people who were eating stopped. To be exact, 3 of them stopped. Wang Sheng, the old Taoist, and Master Lu had stopped what they were doing. Little teacher was still eating without a care in the world. He had not initiated his primordial soul yet, so he could not sense the abnormality in his surroundings. Feeling the sudden strong aura that was deliberately exposed in the surroundings, Wang Sheng did not know how to describe his feelings at the moment as he looked at the figures of the black-clothed men who were slowly approaching him. Was he surprised? Wang Sheng was not surprised at all. He did not know how many people had schemed to find his whereabouts and wanted to get hold of his secrets. Now that someone had come knocking on his door, it was not strange at all. It was all too normal. He had been hiding so well when someone came knocking on his door. Was it a surprise? Not at all. Even though the old blacksmith said that the array on the pendant had been changed by one of his old friends, Wang Sheng still believed that there was more than one way to track him. It was not that Wang Sheng did not have enough confidence in the old blacksmith's old friend. Even Aki could use some unknown method to catch up to him. So this kind of array expert was even more mysterious. As long as he used the pendant, sooner or later, someone would come knocking on his door. Wang Sheng had long known that this day would come. However, what Wang Sheng did not expect was that they could look for anywhere else. The suburbs of the capital where Wang Sheng went to buy things, the road, or even the place where the 3 rivers converged. Why did they choose this place? This small village? Wang Sheng did not know how to describe their luck. On top of that, they actually came knocking on his door today. It couldn't have come late or early, but it just had to come today. How tragic was this? If they had come a few days earlier, Master Lu would not have arrived, and the old Taoist Ling Su would have been the only one there at most. It would have been the same if they had come today. Although the outcome would not have changed much, at least they would have been able to look at the old Taoist alone for a while. But now, these pitiful people could only cry in a while. Are we interrupting your meal? The young man and the old formation master slowly walked to a spot not far from Wang Sheng's table. The young man even displayed his elegance and demeanor in a calm and unruffled manner as he spoke to the 4 who had stopped and were looking at them with a smile. Are you looking for me? Wang Sheng pretended to be ignorant and asked a stupid question. The young man maintained his kind smile and nodded at Wang Sheng and the others. Is it because of this pendant? Wang Sheng pointed at the pendant on his chest and asked another question. The young man remained silent and nodded again with a smile. Wang Sheng turned to look at Master Lu. This pendant blacksmith mentioned that his friend solved the formation. Now that he's here, does this mean that his friend is unreliable? Wang Sheng did this on purpose. Master Lu wanted to argue when Wang Sheng looked at him, but he did not know what to say. He was not an expert in formations, so he could only apologize on behalf of his old friend. I'll go back and ask him what's going on. The young man did not seem to be annoyed by the conversation between Wang Sheng and Master Lu. He simply stood there and watched in silence without saying a word or making a move. You guys take your time. I don't think I have anything to do here, right? Old Taoist Ling Su suddenly opened his mouth and said to the young man with a flattering smile, His expression was clearly that of a coward who had discovered that something was happening and wanted to stay out of it. "I'll take my leave first. You guys have a good chat." After that, he stood up and left. Chapter 218. Old Taoist Ling Su left without anyone stopping him. He left right after he finished speaking and disappeared in the blink of an eye. "Smart man." The young man seemed to be praising him. Smart people tend to live longer. Do I still have a chance to leave?" Wang Sheng remained seated and asked the young man. "I'm sorry, but you won't have a chance." The young man was not in a hurry to make a move, since he felt that victory was in his grasp. Instead, he enjoyed the process of Wang Sheng struggling in his net. "Why don't I sit still and let the old man and the kid leave?" Wang Sheng asked for advice. The young man casually gestured for him to leave, indicating that he did not care. Master Lu had a strange expression on his face. He dragged his last disciple and ran out of everyone's sight as if there was a hungry wolf following behind them. Wang Sheng was the only one at the table. The young man and the old array master took a few steps forward and stood opposite Wang Sheng. The young man pulled out a chair for the old array master and waited for him to take a seat before he sat on the other empty chair. A wise man submits to circumstances. The young man was satisfied that Wang Sheng did not make any unusual movements from the beginning to the end. He smiled and praised him. "Looks like you have a clear understanding of your current situation." Wang Sheng did not say a word and only looked at the two people opposite him. "Don't think that you can escape this time." The young man looked at Wang Sheng and shook his head slightly. He smiled and said, "Excluding us, there are 16 experts around, and each of their cultivation levels is much higher than yours. Furthermore, the entire village is covered by the binding formation. Even a 4th or 5th stage expert can't escape, let alone a 2nd stage kid like you. Aren't you afraid of being discovered by others with such fanfare?" Wang Sheng finally asked. "Who would know?" The young man was amused. He spread his hands and looked around. "My people are all around us. Who would notice? Those villagers?" Looking at Wang Sheng's serious face, the young man could not help but laugh. "Do you really think that I will let these people who have seen my face go? You're from Worry-Free City. You can't be that naive, right?" Wang Sheng covered his face with one hand. He had seen people courting death, but he had never seen someone courting death like this. Would Master Lu agree to his blatant declaration that he was going to kill all the villagers in the village? Or is it old Taoist Ling Su who is willing? "What? You can't bear to see them die because of you?" The young man sneered. "Then you shouldn't have escaped when you came out of the heavenly workshop. If you hadn't escaped at that time, there wouldn't have been so much trouble later, and they wouldn't have died. I think you've misunderstood." Wang Sheng put down his hand and asked seriously if I had the power of a 6th-stage realm, would you still be able to trap me today? 6th realm. The young man was startled by Wang Sheng's serious gaze. After pondering for a while, he shook his head and sneered. "I was almost fooled by you. It's useless even if you're in the 6th-stage realm." The old array master, who had been silent all this while, finally opened his mouth. "My binding array can also trap a 6th-stage realm expert. Unless you're in the 7th-stage realm, perhaps you might be able to break the array under our attacks." "Oh," Wang Sheng replied with an "oh," and said something that both of them felt baffled. "Then I'm relieved." Not only the young man and the old array master, even the black-robed men who didn't make any movements around them were baffled. Everyone's mind was filled with the same thought. Was this fellow a lunatic? A lad who was obviously at most in the 2nd-degree realm, at this point of time, didn't ask what the other party wanted, didn't ask if the other party would let him off, and actually asked if he was in the 6th-degree realm. Wasn't there something wrong with his brain? Don't misunderstand. Seeing that the young man and the old array master were looking at him in a strange way, Wang Sheng waved his hand and said, purely out of curiosity. If there's anything else you want to ask, feel free to ask." The young man looked at Wang Sheng and said coldly, "If you wait for us to speak, you might not have a chance anymore." "All right." Wang Sheng became serious and asked without hesitation, "Do you know what's inside the grounds of Thousand Despair?" The young man was stunned. Why was this question? But when he thought of how Wang Sheng could enter and exit the grounds of Thousand Despair, his interest was piqued. Could it be that Wang Sheng wanted to reveal something? If that was the case, the effect would be much better than extorting a confession. The young man hesitated before replying, "A little, just the periphery. I'm not sure what's inside." "Then do you know how the grounds of Thousand Despair was formed?" Wang Sheng asked again. The young man shook his head. There were many answers, and he wanted Wang Sheng to answer them. How could he possibly have the answers? Wang Sheng's gaze turned to the old array master. The old array master hesitated for a moment before sighing and replying, "I don't know, but I can sense the aura of a few special formations." A few special formations? This was in line with what old Taoist Ling Su had said. It was probably felt in a small area. Overall, it should be about the same number as old Taoist Ling Su's hundreds of formations. Apart from you, is there anyone else who can track this pendant? Wang Sheng changed the topic to the pendant. This pendant is my masterpiece. The old array master spoke again to explain why Wang Sheng had been caught. A formation that can simulate a face is already at the peak of perfection. I haven't been able to make a better one in more than 10 years. This pendant uses a rare material that can be tracked by one of my pets. If I can't find you this time, there won't be a next time. That pet is already old and dying. So that was it. It wasn't just Wang Sheng. Even the young man felt as though he was enlightened. It seemed that the Grandmaster who modified the formation was not to be blamed. It was actually a problem with the material. Actually, I want to say, Wang Sheng looked at the two experts who felt that they had the situation under control and that victory was in their grasp. He sighed. "You came at the wrong time and place." Both of them looked at Wang Sheng in confusion, waiting for Wang Sheng's explanation. Why was it not the right time and place? Was there something wrong with this? Actually, you've made the biggest mistake. Wang Sheng did not care about their doubts. He continued, "The last thing you should have done was to attack the villagers. They didn't do anything to you or provoke you. You shouldn't have thought of silencing them." "So what?" The young man sneered. "Do you think that you have a chance just because there's an old man from the heavenly workshop in the village? We've already checked before we came. That old man Lu's cultivation is at most in the 3rd stage. You want to rely on him to turn the tables? You're thinking too much." "All right," Wang Sheng replied helplessly. "I hope I'm thinking too much." Chapter 219. Wang Sheng's sudden topic made the young man and the old array master burst into laughter. At the same time, they couldn't help but be on their guard. Could it be that their information was wrong and that old man Lu was an expert? Impossible. Speaking of which, you know that the array on my pendant has been altered. Aren't you afraid that there's an expert hiding in the Heaven Workshop? Wang Sheng didn't care what they were thinking. He just asked whatever came to his mind. The longer he dragged on, the easier it would be for old Taoist Ling Su and Master Lu to succeed. The Heaven Workshop has always had an array expert. What's so strange about that? The young man sneered. "Did you really think that you're the only one who found that shop in the Pavilion of Delicacy?" The moment he heard that this fellow didn't know the secret of the Pavilion of Delicacy and thought that he knew the secret of the Pavilion of Delicacy, sigh. The ignorant are fearless. That was really the case. I'm rather curious. What price did you use to convince the Grandmaster of the Pavilion of Delicacy to help you open the exquisite seal box? It was Wang Sheng who asked the question previously, but now it was the young man's turn. Just at this moment, a scream was heard from afar. However, whether it was Wang Sheng, the young man, or the old array master, all of them sat upright on the spot, not moving at all. The young man and the old array master assumed that it was their subordinates who were dealing with the villagers. Whereas for Wang Sheng, it was the other way around. He didn't think that an 8th-stage realm expert and a Taoist who was even more powerful than an 8th-stage realm expert would be dealt with so easily, so it must be the other way around. Any of the items on me would be able to tempt a Grandmaster, right? Wang Sheng casually brushed him off and asked in reply, "How do you know that I'll definitely be able to open the exquisite seal box?" The items on Wang Sheng were indeed magical. Whether it was the divine weapon that could kill people from miles away, or the incendiary bomb that could instantly ignite a warehouse. They were all items that many people dreamed of. The young man didn't doubt what Wang Sheng said at all. The Grand Master who made the seal box happened to be in the heavenly workshop during those days. The young man returned the favor. When Wang Sheng answered one of his questions, he also answered one of Wang Sheng's questions. There is a stabilizing formation on the box. As long as the formation is destroyed, one of my tokens will explode. This explained why Wang Sheng was chased outside the heavenly workshop as soon as he got the necklace. This also made Wang Sheng understand why this fellow believed that there was no great grandmaster in the heavenly workshop, even though he knew that someone had opened the exquisite seal box. It turned out that it was the creator, so he thought that it was the creator himself who had opened it. Alas, the more he explained, the more he felt that some superficial phenomena were normal, so it was understandable to treat Master Lu as a third-stage realm old sculptor. Pitiful fellows, don't they know what it means to hide in the city? It's scary to be uneducated. When Wang Sheng understood this point, he had another question. This Ling Long seal box is the Castellan Manor's treasure, but you don't look like you're from the Castellan Manor. The Castellan of Carefree City? Oomph. The young man gave a disdainful snort. If he stays in Carefree City to help us hold the fort, then we'll let him be the Castellan. Otherwise, it's not a difficult matter to change a Castellan. Another powerful force hidden in Carefree City. Wang Sheng gave this young man a definition in his heart. Perhaps Sister Rosa should be on this side, otherwise she wouldn't have mentioned this necklace. Interesting. Carefree City was indeed a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. All sorts of forces were intertwined, which was very interesting. But did they really think that the Castellan of Carefree City was so easy to deal with? A person who could be easily manipulated by them could control Carefree City? Who was the one who was careless? Didn't Sister Rosa tell you to be careful? Thinking of Sister Rosa, Wang Sheng immediately asked. However, based on Wang Sheng's understanding of Sister Rosa wasn't the kind of person who would act rashly and look down on everyone in the world. There must be some internal strife within their organization. Suddenly hearing Rosa's name come out of Wang Sheng's mouth, the young man's expression changed, and he immediately turned fierce. That lowly slave Rosa actually told you this? Fine. When we return, I'll make her kneel in front of me to receive her punishment. Don't think that just because you know that lowly slave Rosa and she spoke up for you, you can get away with it. The young man seemed to have imagined how he would humiliate Rosa, and his lips curled into a smile. When she receives her punishment, you can watch from the side. If you cooperate, I don't mind letting you play with her. What do you think? The proud young man was thinking about how to bully the disobedient Rosa, so he did not notice that the old formation master next to him had suddenly stiffened. The old formation master was still sitting at the table, but he dared not move recklessly anymore. Sweat trickled down his forehead like a stream from his chin to his neck, and from his neck to his clothes. His eyes, which were calm and composed just a moment ago, were now filled with shock. Since he was sitting opposite Wang Sheng naturally saw everything clearly. From the looks of it, it was obvious that the old Taoist and Master Lu had made a move, and the effect was rather good. Needless to say, the biggest possibility was that the formation that the old formation master was so proud of had been broken. As a formation master, it was normal for him to sense the aura of the formation that he had set up. In that case, it was also normal for him to not be able to sense it. Because he could not sense it, he understood how terrifying the person who could stop his formation in such a short period of time was. It was not surprising for the current situation to occur. The old formation master was regretful. Really, initially, he thought that he was here to deal with a kid at the peak of the second stage realm. As long as he found Wang Sheng and prevented Wang Sheng from escaping, he would be able to obtain the formation map that he had been yearning for day and night. Only now did he realize that this errand was truly a life-threatening one. Suddenly, he recalled what Wang Sheng had asked earlier about whether a sixth-stage realm cultivator could escape. A 6-stage realm cultivator would not be able to break his formation. Even a 7-stage realm cultivator would barely be able to break the formation. It was impossible for it to be so easy and silent. To be able to achieve such an effect, the person must at least be an 8th-stage realm cultivator. An 8th-stage realm cultivator. The old formation master suddenly felt like crying. He should have been studying his own formation in peace. Why did he get involved in this mess? The various families had sent so many experts to no avail against Wang Sheng. How could he have been so foolish to make such an unwise move? Thinking of the arrogant words of the young man beside him, saying that Wang Sheng was thinking too much, the old formation master really wanted to stand up and leave, just like the old Taoist from the beginning. Chapter 220. Unfortunately, he cannot leave now. The old array master understood that from the moment he agreed to find traces of Wang Sheng, he was destined to step into this predicament. Finally, a drop of sweat dripped from the old array master's chin to his beard and from his beard to his clothes. The young man finally realized something was amiss. "What happened to you?" The young man was shocked. Looking at the motionless old array master, he asked loudly. "I realized that my array had been silently broken by someone, so I got scared." The old array master did not open his mouth. It was Wang Sheng who answered. "Are you kidding me?" The young man was feeling proud. How could he believe such nonsense? After reprimanding, he realized that not only did the old array master not refute, the sweat on his forehead increased. This time, no matter how stupid the young man was, he understood that Wang Sheng was not lying. After realizing this, the young man also seemed to be shocked. He sat in his seat, not moving at all, and instantly broke out in a cold sweat. In terms of cultivation, battle experience, array mastery, no matter which aspect, the old array master was much better than the young man. The reason why the young man was able to lead the team was mainly because of his identity. Otherwise, why would the 6th-degree realm experts listen to him? Thinking of the 2 6th-degree realm experts under him, the young man regained some vitality. 2 6th-degree realm experts. Even if they could not defeat the expert who quietly broke the array, they should be able to protect him and leave safely. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the scene in front of him made the young man's last bit of hope disappear without a trace. Bang! A black-robed man fell heavily on the ground not far away, bleeding from his nose and mouth. He struggled on the ground for a while, but could not get up. Wang Sheng and the old array master may not know this black-robed man, but the young man did. This black-robed man who fell on the ground was one of the 2 6th-degree realm experts he had just thought of. However, looking at his current state, not to mention protecting him, whether he could leave or not was another matter. A set of unhurried footsteps could be heard, just like when the young man and the old array master entered the village leisurely. The young man and the old array master struggled to turn their heads towards the direction of the footsteps and saw the 3rd-stage realm old sculptor. Master Lu held a chisel in his left hand and a hammer in his right. He walked over slowly without any expression on his face. But it was this emotionless expression that made their hearts fall into the abyss. Actually, when your carving reaches a certain level, some things will become simple. Master Lu could not be bothered to say anything to the young man and the old formation master. As a great grandmaster, what was there to say to 2 people who were about to die? His current target of education was Wang Sheng, and it was an on-the-spot education. If you see them as enemies of experts, then they are enemies of experts. Master Lu was still giving Wang Sheng pointers. Then, he changed the topic. However, if you view them as moving materials, then they're nothing more than sculpting materials. Look, after saying that, Master Lu dashed forward and suddenly appeared next to the black-robed 6th-stage realm expert. The hammer and chisel in his hands clanked as his hands moved like the wind, as though his arms and hands had disappeared. All that could be heard was a series of continuous hammering sounds. Wang Sheng's eyes were focused on Master Lu's hands and the hammer and chisel. He stared at them intently, afraid that he would miss anything. As for the young man and the old array master, they were blocked by Master Lu's body. Furthermore, Master Lu's hands were too fast, so they could not see what was happening. Master Lu did not waste too much time. At most, it took him 2 to 3 sips of tea before the hammering and chisel stopped. Actually, you can use many tools for carving, but if you specialize in stone carving, you can only use hammers and chisels. Master Lu's voice was heard. He was basically educating Wang Sheng. He did not care about the arrogant young man and the old array master at all. At that moment, the young man finally saw his 6th-degree realm subordinate. The black-robed expert was standing on the spot in a daze, not moving at all. Meanwhile, the young man had no idea what had just happened. Just as he was feeling puzzled, a small cut suddenly appeared on the black-robed subordinate's face. It seemed to be a signal. Following that, the black-robed man's body began to split open, and a pile of thin black and red things fell like snowflakes. By the time all the items had fallen, the man in black had already turned into a standing, evenly skinned meat frame. There was no skin on his body at all, only exposed muscles and fat. Every piece of skin that fell was of the same size and thickness. It was so neat that it looked like it was carved with a sharp knife. Blarg! When a young man saw this, the visual impact and the fear in his heart made him vomit. How hopeless was it for his savior to be skinned on the spot? The young man's mental fortitude was considered pretty good that he did not faint from the shock. However, Wang Sheng did not care whether the 6th-degree realm expert was dead or alive. His attention was completely focused on Master Lu's technique. The young man only saw fear and cruelty, but what Wang Sheng saw was the pinnacle of skill. The opponent was someone who could move. If Master Lu had used a knife or a sword, Wang Sheng would have thought it was normal. However, Master Lu used a hammer and chisel. Every time he hammered, he would use the chisel to chisel a piece of the opponent's skin. Not only could the opponent move, but he was also a cultivation expert. His skin could be soft or hard, but no matter how he resisted or evaded, he could not avoid Master Lu's chisel. It was neither more nor less, neither thick nor thin. What kind of skill was this? From Master Lu's movements, Wang Sheng saw the control, the use of spiritual qi, the control of materials, the precision of his moves. He saw many things, and they were all the pinnacle of skill. The only thing he did not see was the killing. Master Lu did not care about the black-robed man's life or death. He was using it as a demonstration for Wang Sheng. When Master Lu saw the burning desire in Wang Sheng's eyes for his carving technique, he did not say a word and began to work again. After a long series of clanking sounds, the black-clad man turned into a clean, white skeleton without any flesh sticking to it. As long as you put your heart into it, you'll be able to achieve this even if your carving technique is at its peak. From the beginning to the end, Master Lu only gave Wang Sheng pointers on his carving technique. He did not care about anything else. But that arrogant young man had already vomited into a puddle of mud. Chapter 221. All that was left in Wang Sheng's eyes was Master Lu's miraculous technique. There was nothing else. Wang Sheng could not care less about cruelty. Even if he did, Wang Sheng would pretend that he did not see it. When a young man and the old array master said that they would kill everyone in the village to silence them, the ending was already set in stone. The only uncertain thing was how these people would die. Since they were going to die anyway, did it matter how they died? Dying under the heavenly sword was death. Dying in the mouth of the green-winged Bat King was also death. What was the difference? The old array master did not throw up. It was not because he had killed many people or seen many cruel scenes that he had a strong mental fortitude, but because he was already prepared to die. From a moment his formation was silently broken, the old formation master was already aware of this. This time, there was no escape. He had been cautious all his life, and this was the only time he thought that he could pinch a soft persimmon. In the end, he kicked an iron plate. The young man finally stopped throwing up because there was nothing left to throw up in his stomach. Although he was arrogant and had killed people before, when had he ever seen such a terrifying scene? No one was a fool. The young man was capable of leading so many experts to be arrogant, but he was not completely brainless. Now, he completely understood that they were finished this time. None of them expected the old carver from the celestial workshop to be such a terrifying expert. If they had known earlier, they would have waited a few days for the old carver to leave before coming. At that moment, the young man and the old array master finally understood what Wang Sheng meant when he said that they had come at the wrong time. However, it was too late. Among the men in black, there was still a sixth-stage expert who had not appeared. Perhaps that subordinate was smart and did not show up, waiting for the right time to save him. A surge of hope rose in the young man's heart. Although the possibility was very small, what if? Just as the thought of being lucky popped up in his head, a black shadow suddenly appeared in everyone's vision, smashing toward Wang Sheng, who was deep in thought. The sudden attack snapped Wang Sheng out of his daze. Without even thinking about it, he sent out a punch. Halfway through his punch, he saw what was flying towards him. Then Wang Sheng opened his fist and instantly turned it into a palm. "Fight with him, let me see." Old Taoist Ling Su's voice sounded in his ears. This was the real reason why Wang Sheng changed his fist into a palm. It was another black-clothed man who came smashing over with a whistling sound. The black-clothed man was very clear-headed, but he was unable to resist the force that sent him flying. He flailed his arms and legs as he smashed towards Wang Sheng. If Wang Sheng were to throw a punch with his current strength, a full-force punch would be enough to shatter a large piece of iron. Seeing that his opponent was completely unable to control his body, Wang Sheng stretched out his arm. The moment his arm came into contact with his opponent's body, it suddenly became soft. Using a Taiji technique to dispel the force, Wang Sheng deftly dispelled the terrifying force contained in the man in black's body. He supported the man in black's body in the air and spun him around before placing him firmly on the ground. However, the moment the black-clothed man stabilized himself, Wang Sheng's shoulder had already fiercely slammed against his chest. Bang! The black-clothed man was sent flying far away by Wang Sheng. He staggered a few steps back before regaining his balance. Just as he was about to counterattack, the black-clothed man suddenly realized that more than half of his cultivation had been sealed. The power that he could display was merely the power of a third-stage intermediate realm. However, his opponent, Wang Sheng, was only at the peak of the second stage. A third-stage intermediate realm was enough to end Wang Sheng's life. The mysterious expert had told him that as long as he could defeat Wang Sheng, he would let him live. The black-clothed man would risk his life to defeat Wang Sheng in order to survive. The young man was secretly delighted when he saw the black-clothed man standing still. On the other hand, Master Lu actually ignored the black-clothed man and slowly walked to the side, allowing the black-clothed man to charge towards Wang Sheng. What did this mean? The young man had completely fainted. The old array master seemed to have noticed something, but he did not want to say anything. He only wanted to witness the elegance of a peerless expert before he died. Facing an opponent whose cultivation had been sealed, Wang Sheng was not afraid at all. When he was still in the unranked realm, he dared to beat up Song Laoyu, who was in the third-stage realm. Now that Wang Sheng had gone through the Taowu transformation, would he be afraid of an opponent whose cultivation had been sealed? The black-clothed man was very confident. This confidence came from the fact that he was already a sixth-stage realm expert. In terms of battle, cultivation, and various aspects of experience, he crushed Wang Sheng in all aspects. Even if he only used the power of a third-stage realm, he could rely on these to easily defeat an opponent of the same level. Not to mention that the opponent was only at the peak of the second-stage realm, which was slightly lower than him. Wang Sheng actually displayed a slack stance, which made the black-clothed man stunned. The black-clothed man thought that he would hit Wang Sheng when he was thrown out at such a fast speed. In the end, he did not know what happened, but he spun 2 rounds in the air and landed on the ground. Now that he saw Wang Sheng's stance, the black-clothed man's first reaction was to wonder if Wang Sheng had gone mad. The black-clothed man was in a daze, but the eyes of the old Taoist Ling Su, who had thrown the black-clothed man out, lit up. Wang Sheng's technique earlier and his current stance gave him an indescribable feeling. It was as if there was a veil in front of him that could be lifted with a gentle lift, but it was always right in front of him, and he could not touch the edge no matter how hard he tried. The little person with combat awareness had been optimizing the fighting style of Taiji Fist for a long time. Later on, there was a doppelganger who had been immersed in Taiji Fist. At this moment, the little person with combat awareness seemed to be even more excited than Wang Sheng. The moment the black-clothed man moved, he immediately responded in the source soul space. Be it Master Lu, old Taoist Ling Su, or even the dying young man and the old formation master, they were all dumbfounded as they witnessed an extremely wonderful and strange fight. Wang Sheng's strength was so terrifying that it made one's hair stand on end, but he did not display his strength advantage at all in this fight. Instead, he fought with the black-clothed man in an incomprehensible way. If it was purely a head-on clash of strength, the black-clothed man might have enough experience to give Wang Sheng a good beating. Of course, that was just what he thought. But now, Wang Sheng was not fighting him head-on at all. Instead, he was using this seemingly soft yet extremely headache-inducing method to deal with him. The black-clad man was beaten to the point of tears. Who would have thought that his punch, which he had been accumulating power for so long, would be pulled back by Wang Sheng? Wang Sheng didn't even need to exert any strength at all. His body crashed into Wang Sheng's elbow. That pain was truly heart-wrenching. However, that was not all. He endured the pain and swept across, but Wang Sheng turned around and used his back to push him far away. He almost fell to the ground. Do you hit people with your back? Chapter 222. Wang Sheng's whole body seemed to have turned into a soft rope, twisting and turning. But when he touched it, he found that it was not a soft rope, but an elastic bow. Whether it was his shoulders, back, buttocks, or even his chest and abdomen, they had all turned into weapons. Have you ever seen a punch that missed the opponent's belly and then bounced back so violently that you almost dislocated your wrist? No matter how he attacked, in the end, either Wang Sheng dodged it, or Wang Sheng used a method that the black-clothed man could not imagine to neutralize his strength, leaving him powerless despite having the strength of thousands of kilograms. On the other hand, Wang Sheng became more and more comfortable, and the more he fought, the smoother it became. No matter how many times the battle consciousness villain deduced in the soul space, it could not compare to fighting with a real master. This was the current situation. It was not just Wang Sheng. Even the tiny person with combat awareness had benefited greatly from this. The feeling of not being able to use his strength made the black-clothed man so depressed that he wanted to cry, but the places on his body that were hit from time to time made him cry in pain. The black-clothed man could not imagine that Wang Sheng could beat him like this under such circumstances. He did not know if the mysterious master knew all this and did it on purpose. Wang Sheng's seemingly soft palm hit the black-clothed man's body, but the black-clothed man's face showed an extremely painful expression. Old Taoist Ling Su, who had been watching all this, was so excited that he did not care about anything else. His eyes were fixed on Wang Sheng's technique, and he even simulated a few of the moves not far away. Old Taoist Ling Su was so excited that he almost jumped up. From Wang Sheng, he saw a kind of fist technique that was almost exactly the same as his understanding of the Tao, but every time it was just a little bit off, so he could not enjoy it to his heart's content. This feeling was more uncomfortable than killing him, but it made him so attracted that he could not stop. Even if he had to endure the depression, he still had to watch for fear of missing a little bit. Firm and fierce, two completely different ways of exerting force, were actually so unified. This discovery almost made the old Taoist cry out in excitement. The old Taoist was not the only one. Even Master Lu and the old formation master were attracted as well. They stared at the two men who were fighting without blinking. This scene gave the young man an opportunity to take advantage of. Everyone's attention was focused on the battle over there. No one was paying attention to him at all. Wasn't this a great opportunity for him to escape? Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to him, he crawled on the ground while he was vomiting. At this moment, the young man didn't care whether it was shameful or not. He just crawled a few feet away. There was a wall in front of him. As long as he climbed over it, no one would be able to see him. If no one saw him, his movements would be slightly bigger. As long as he was careful and escaped far enough, he would be able to display his super speed and leave this place of death. He was about to reach the corner of the wall, and all he had to do was turn around. There was even a look of joy on the young man's face, as if the light was right in front of him. But suddenly, darkness enveloped him. It was not the darkness of the night, but the clothes of a man in black. The man in black was sent flying by Wang Sheng's firm and fierce punch, and he landed squarely on the young man's head. Wang Sheng did not hold back with this punch. Instead, he used his true strength. The sixth-stage man in black's sternum was broken by this punch, and his internal organs were smashed as he was sent flying. The young man, who had been acting as if he was certain that Wang Sheng was an expert, was hit by his subordinate in black. A clear crack came from his neck, and he was lying less than a few inches away from the corner of the wall. He was no longer breathing. "I thought you were a powerful expert. Turns out you can't even take a punch from me." Looking at the scene, Wang Sheng stood there and shook his head in disdain. He then turned to look at old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist had completely fallen into madness at this moment. He closed his eyes, as if recalling everything he had just seen. His hands and feet moved nonstop, and from time to time, he would mimic Wang Sheng's movements during the battle. His expression was intoxicated, and he looked even more exaggerated than if he had drunk a jar of hard liquor. Master Lu was not much better. At the 8th stage realm, even if he did not fight much, his eyesight and the sensitivity of top-notch martial grandmaster were still there. Some of the things that Wang Sheng's fighting techniques showed were not necessarily things that he could not use. There were even some techniques that were soft and firm, which resonated with Master Lu's technique of skinning people with hammers and chisels. How could Master Lu not be overjoyed? The only person who could not understand was probably the old formation master. He had seen Wang Sheng's final attack, the death of the man in black, and the death of a young man who had come with him. Now it was probably his turn. None of the other subordinates of the young man had appeared, but the old formation master had completely given up hope. Out of the two strongest 6th stage realm experts, one of them was skinned alive with a hammer and chisel, and the other was killed by Wang Sheng using an unimaginable method. As for those who were weaker than them, they didn't even need to think to know what would happen to them. Thinking back to the screams they had heard not long ago, he and the young man had thought that they were the screams of the villagers. Now, they realized that they were the screams of the young man's subordinates before they died. "Pick an opponent," Wang Sheng said to the old formation master, who had not moved from his seat after returning to his original seat. Wang Sheng was a warrior. He could not be soft-hearted and let go of an expert who wanted to kill him and had a way to track his whereabouts. Even if he was an old man who had been scared out of his wits, the old formation master had to die. Letting him pick an opponent was already his limit. The old formation master also knew his ending, but he still stood up and walked towards the old Taoist Ling Su. The old formation master had seen Master Lu's attack. The old formation master had also seen Wang Sheng's attack. The only thing he did not see was how the old Taoist Ling Su had attacked. He did not even know how the man in black from the 6th stage realm had flown over. However, this did not stop him from discovering that the old Taoist might be an expert. The old formation master also understood what Wang Sheng meant when he said that they had come at the wrong time. The old Taoist had been living here all this time, but they had actually tried to attack him. They had indeed come at the wrong time and place. The old formation master's cultivation was obviously stronger than the young man's. However, just as he was about to attack the old Taoist, who was meditating with his eyes closed, the old Taoist casually raised his hand. His arm passed through the old Taoist's ribs and landed on the old Taoist's chest in a seemingly effortless manner. Then, Wang Sheng saw the old formation master's body fly out like an arrow. With a swoosh, he crashed into the wall not far away from the young man with a loud thud. The wall was unscathed, but the old formation master's body had turned into an enlarged, thin painting, stuck to the wall in a strange and terrifying manner. Chapter 223. Wang Sheng had always known that old Taoist Ling Su was very powerful, but he only had an idea about it. For example, he was more powerful than Master Lu, who had just entered the 8th stage. As for whether he was in the middle or late stage of the 8th stage, or the peak or the 9th stage, he had no idea. However, this palm made Wang Sheng see the terror of old Taoist Ling Su. It was also tough with a touch of gentleness. He slapped a person against the wall, but the wall was fine, and the person became a painting. This move alone was enough to make Wang Sheng understand the huge gap between him and old Taoist Ling Su. That was a person, and a living person whose cultivation was definitely not weaker than Wang Sheng's. It was not a balloon. What kind of power was needed to flatten a person's bones and flesh with just one palm? What kind of terrifying technique was needed? Wang Sheng did not dare to imagine. However, what surprised Wang Sheng was that old Taoist Ling Su's shock to Wang Sheng was no less than the shock he brought to Wang Sheng. What kind of fist technique did you use just now? What fighting style was it? Old Taoist Ling Su did not care about the consequences of the old formation master being sent flying by his palm. He rushed to Wang Sheng and asked hurriedly, "It's a fist technique that I developed myself. It's called Tai Chi." Wang Sheng claimed the inventor of Tai Chi as his own without any shame. Anyway, whether it was Grandmaster Zhang Sanfeng or the other masters on Earth, they would not chase after him to demand intellectual property rights. Tai Chi. Old Taoist Ling Su felt that it was something he had always dreamed of when he heard the name. Tai Chi is born from infinity. It's the mechanism of movement and stillness, the mother of yin and yang. Wang Sheng said a sentence in a genteel manner. Then he saw old Taoist Ling Su start to stare blankly as if he had been immobilized. Wang Sheng had already expected this. The development of Taoism in this world was quite good, but some of its theories were far inferior to those on Earth. Tai Chi Yin and Yang had yet to be perfected. This sentence about the general principles of Tai Chi fist was enough to enchant old Taoist Ling Su, a pure Taoist who had always maintained peace and inaction in his heart. Old Taoist Ling Su is not the only one. Even Master Lu had a fascinated look on his face. From time to time, he would flip his wrist and shake his hand. It was as if he had integrated something into his skills. Both of them were deep in thought, so the rest of the work could only be left to Wang Sheng. Sigh, there's nothing I can do about it. I was born to be busy. After looking around the village, Wang Sheng realized that the old Taoist and Master Lu were reliable. The dozens of black-clothed men had already been piled together by them. It seemed that not a single one of them had escaped. Wang Sheng only needed to drag the few of them over. The dead young man and the old array master were easy to deal with, but the troublesome ones were the 2 6th-stage black-clothed men. One of them had his flesh and skin peeled off by Master Lu using a hammer and chisel, while the other was stuck to the wall. Wang Sheng had no choice but to use a dustpan to send the 2 men to the pile of corpses. Then, he began to check the spoils of war. All kinds of weapons and whatnot were collected so that Master Lu could take them back. The income from selling them would be given to the villagers as compensation for their shock. A pile of metal engraved with patterns had been deliberately gathered together by old Taoist Ling Su. Needless to say, this must be the array disc that the old array master had mentioned. This was a good item. If a complete set was auctioned, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. Needless to say, he kept it first. Most of the young man's organizations were hidden in Carefree City. Naturally, they would carry many iconic killer tokens. Hence, Wang Sheng reaped a bountiful harvest. The worst one was a white killer token. He had a total of 52 white killer tokens. Other than that, there were 3 green killer tokens, which were obtained from the 2 6th-stage black-clothed men and the young leader. Everything else aside, just the number of killer cards was enough to turn Wang Sheng's grade 5 white killer card into a grade 6 cyan killer card. Overall, that was the total harvest. Wang Sheng did not mind that it was too little. He quickly dug a big hole at the spot where the old Taoist had chosen to pile the corpses and threw all the corpses into it. Although these cultivators' corpses would not naturally rot, it was only for a short period of time. Over the years, they would still rot completely. This was what Wang Sheng found out later. Demonic beast meat also had a shelf life. It was about half a year. After this period, the spiritual energy contained in it would dissipate and it would slowly rot. After dealing with the corpses, Wang Sheng returned to the place where everyone was having their meal. The smell of blood was so strong that they would definitely not be able to eat. However, Master Lu and old Taoist Ling Su were still deep in thought. Wang Sheng knew how rare it was to have an epiphany like this, so he did not interrupt them. He sat down at the original table and started to ponder on it. Initially, Wang Sheng's intention was to summarize the battle with the six-stage black-clothed man. However, when Wang Sheng's consciousness entered the soul space, he saw a scene that made him dumbfounded. Two of the avatars were simulating the battle between Wang Sheng and the black-clothed man, which looked normal. Two of them were simulating the way the old Taoist had pasted the old formation master to the wall, which looked normal too. However, the other two were simulating and optimizing the scene when Master Lu dealt with the first black-clothed man with a hammer and chisel. How was that possible? Wang Sheng was very clear about the avatars in his soul space. As long as it was related to a battle, it would actively simulate and optimize it. However, as long as it was not related to a battle, it would probably not even bother to move. It was not that Wang Sheng had never learned the basics of carving. He had used the hammer and chisel countless times, but he did not see the avatars move at all. However, Wang Sheng did not expect the avatars to simulate the carving technique, and he actually simulated it on his own initiative. That's right. Wang Sheng instantly understood everything. Master Lu's original intention of demonstrating to Wang Sheng was to tell Wang Sheng that a Grandmaster level carving technique could use any materials to carve perfectly, and at the same time, he could use the carving technique to protect himself. Originally, it was about the craftsmanship, but since the target was the black-clothed man, it was not just about the craftsmanship, but the killing technique. As long as it was a killing technique, the avatars would immediately treat it as a battle technique and naturally started to simulate and optimize it. Wang Sheng could not tell if it was optimized or not, but the avatars could completely replicate Master Lu's previous two moves. If that was all, it would not be enough to make Wang Sheng surprised. However, the avatar's professional carving technique made Wang Sheng almost burst out laughing. When the avatars mastered some techniques, it meant that Wang Sheng had also mastered them. A Grandmaster level carving technique. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.